couple of Scrivener's errors and then one change to the agenda. I would like to note that item 4 was published as a second reading. We've had a lot of discussions, but we haven't actually had a reading. This is going to be the first reading for item 4. For item 12, that was published as a quasi-judicial. That's actually going to be a legislative hearing, not a quasi-judicial. So those are my two Scrivener's errors. Item 12 moves to legislative, not quasi. Item 4 is first reading, not second. And then with the commission's permission, we have a discussion item number 18, which is the public charter school proposal. I see a lot of parents here, and they've got babysitters. That's really just it's not really even a presentation, it's just a discussion. Can we move that up right after the proclamation under presentations? That way these guys can get home to it won't take long. That way they get home to their children. Those are my three changes. Scrivener's errors for 4 and 12, and move item 18 to presentations. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. I'd like to invite citizen Tim Martin to the podium to give tonight's invocation. If you would please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, it will follow thereafter.
Bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for watching over our community and continuing to bless our leaders. We ask you to be with our teachers and parents in this season of decision. We pray for those in positions of protection who sacrifice their mental health for physical well-being. Tonight I ask your guidance for us to do your will as we shape this city for our families, our friends, and our businesses. We are a great city because of our high level of community involvement. Please bless that and continue it in all the areas of need. We pray for your healing over the sick, and we pray these things in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, citizen Tim Martin. You can now become Commissioner Tim Martin again. And that's going to move us to our first presentation, which is a proclamation designating February 26, 2024 as James, better known as Jim, Easton Day in Newberry, Florida. Travis, tell us a little bit about this.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Mr. Jim Easton passed away in December, and he was a revolutionary figure in the sports world, whether it was baseball bats or archery. He played a pivotal role in that. He also played a giant role in bringing the Easton foundations to the city of Newberry and constructing the Easton building. So we wanted to honor that with a proclamation.
Absolutely. I think at this point we take Easton Foundation being out there as just part of Newberry's landscape, but it wouldn't have happened without him. So our heart goes out to the family, and thank you, Travis, for bringing forth this great idea. So with that in mind, I'll offer the following proclamation. Whereas it is with deep sorrow and heartfelt reverence that we acknowledge the passing of James L. Easton, a visionary and esteemed figure in the world of sports, business, and philanthropy. Whereas James L. Easton played an instrumental role in bringing the Easton Foundations to Newberry and in the development of the Easton Newberry Archery Center, leaving an indelible mark on the community. Whereas James L. Easton, born on July 26, 1935 in Los Angeles, California, demonstrated unwavering determination and commitment throughout his life, contributing significantly to the evolution of high-performance sports equipment and leaving an enduring legacy. Whereas as the CEO of Jas D. Easton, Inc. since 1972, James Easton spearheaded groundbreaking advancements in sports equipment, transitioning from traditional materials to lightweight, high-strength aluminum and carbon composite products. Whereas James Easton's leadership extended beyond business with notable contributions to global sports as archery commissioner, head of technology, and mayor of the Athletes Village at UCLA during the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. Whereas his visionary leadership as president of the World Archery Federation for 16 years from 1989 to 2005 and subsequent involvement in the International Olympic Committee significantly impacted the sport's global recognition, leading to his designation as a core sports in the Olympic Games. Whereas James Easton's commitment to archery education and development is exemplified by the establishment of the Easton Sports Development Foundations in 1982, fostering excellence in leadership, facilities, programs, training, and education globally. Whereas James Easton's philanthropy has left an indelible mark on archery centers worldwide, including the Easton Archery Center of Excellence in Chula Vista, California, the Easton Newberry Archery Center in Newberry, Florida, and the World Archery Excellence Center in Lausanne, Switzerland. Whereas James Easton's contribution to archery and sportsmanship have been recognized through numerous accolades, including the induction into the Archery Hall of Fame, the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame, and receiving prestigious awards such as the USOC Olympic Torch Award. Whereas James Easton's generosity extended to his collegiate roots, benefiting UCLA in engineering, business, medicine, and sports, earning him the esteemed UCLA Medal. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Newberry expresses its deepest condolences on the passing of James L. Easton and acknowledges his profound impact on archery, sports, and philanthropy. Be it further resolved that this resolution be conveyed to the Easton family as a token of the city's respect and gratitude for the extraordinary life and legacy of James L. Easton. In witness whereof, the City of Newberry hereby adopts and proclaims this resolution on the 26th day of February 2024. Mr. Blake Block, would you join me down here so we can present this to you? Thank you so much.
I look forward to James Easton Day being something we celebrate at our center for a long time coming. I've been with the center there since 2010, and it's been awesome seeing it being more and more involved in the community. I just hear it all the time in town. We're up at Easton. It's just part of the community now. And I'd like to just thank you. It means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got some parents who've brought forth a bold and interesting idea that has created quite a buzz. Would you come down and talk to us a little bit about this idea and what you'd like from the commission at this point?
Sure. Thank you. So my name's Carson Stefanelli. I'm here on behalf of Education First Newberry. Thanks for having me here. I think some of you guys were at the announcement last Monday. Some of you were at our first town hall meeting. If you're not aware yet, if you've been living under a rock, we are proposing a conversion charter, which is, legal. It has precedence, and it would remove control of the Newberry schools from the school board of Alachua County. That's our proposal. We would like to formalize our intent with the city by providing our feasibility study and the conversion charter proposal to the city manager for review and consideration. If the community votes in favor in April, when it comes to a vote by teachers and households, at that time we will ask for the city's more formal support once you've had time to review our proposal. If there's any questions during the review process, please reach out to me or Joel Searby. He's on the board as well. If there's any questions, we'll collaborate with our expert consultants and legal team, financial team that we've got on board to help us with the research, the accounting, and the legal aspects, and we'll be able to answer any questions promptly and officially. That's pretty much it.
So first, I want to say thank you for recognizing that there have been some issues and some struggles. We got a lot of folks in town that can recognize that, but very few parents do the research and legwork to go out and offer a solution. So just so I'm clear, what you're asking tonight is to give all of your data study to the city manager for the city's review, and then asking after they take their time to review it, if the parents' vote goes in this direction, then we would come back for a motion. But at this point, you just want a head nod to say, hey, can we submit everything to Mike?
Yes, sir. Our proposal includes some cooperation with the city, so we would like to just make you aware of that, inform you
appreciate
of
that.
some of the, we took liberty to assume a little bit of cooperation, so hopefully, again, it's just a proposal right now. We want to turn over the details and allow time to review. If you guys have any questions or need more data that comes up during that review, then we'll have time to, we got roughly 50 days before the vote. We can do a lot more research and turn over some more data if needed by then.
Okay, so I guess my only question about that, seems like a reasonable ask, Mike, but they've got 54 days. Can we do a reasonable analysis and report back? Because I think there's a lot of other parents, community members who would love to hear yours and Dallas's and Travis's and all of our upper management team's opinion on, and Scott's opinion on the governance structure to see if it's feasible and sustainable. Can we do that in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks? That would give another 3 weeks for people to learn.
Digest it.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. The commission, I think, has expressed interest in at least learning more about the proposal that's been made, and I think our staff team is prepared to review the plan and the budget and to offer feedback to the commission, say, in a 3 to 4 week period.
Okay. Does any of the commissioners have, I know that some of you were able to attend, but do you have any comments or questions, or you just want to wait for staff to come back and report out?
I'll wait.
All right. Okay. Well, we appreciate it. We're going to move into public announcements. We don't have a motion on the floor. But thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. And we'll look for, do you need Mike's, will you give them a card so they know who to email that to? And then Mike will get it to whoever they need to get it to. Okay, that's going to move us to, bless you, public announcements. Any member of the public here to speak to any agenda item that's not on, or to speak to anything that's not on the agenda item. Your commission likes to hear from you frequently and often, so we set aside this time at the beginning to ask those questions. If you want to, you can come on down. If it's on the agenda, then please wait for the agenda item. If you have a statement that you want to make to the commission that needs a little bit longer time, there's public announcements at the end of the commission meeting. You have 5 minutes at that point in time. So anything you want to announce to the public, come on down, ma'am. Don't be shy. We don't bite.
Oh, I'm shy. Hey, my name's Brandy, and I'm sure y'all know me.
Can you give us your last name, please?
Altman. I'm sure a lot of you know me. I've had discussions with a few of you. Thanks, Mr. Stephanie, for making this motion and getting fired up about your kids' education, because I'm right there with you. I'm fired up. I just want to tell y'all, I'm not okay with it, and I don't like the plan. I don't think it can be inclusive like they said they can. Sorry, this public speaking's not my
That's all right.
thing.
You're doing just fine.
But it's kind of out of touch with some of us that are on the other side of the tracks that aren't part of your friend group. I mean, I'd really just like to, you specifically, Tim, you not to shut me up online. You not to shut me down. I have a voice for my children.
You need to direct your comments to me.
Okay, Mr. Morlow. I'd like for him not to shut me down. I'd like for his wife not to try to intimidate me when I talk about these issues. I care about my kids just as much as you all, just as much as you, Mr. Ceppolini.
Up here. Thank you.
That's all I gotta say. I want to be heard. I want to be a part of it because it's probably going to pass. You probably already got your little votes together. But I want to have a say in it. That's it. I'm nervous.
That's all right. It's okay. You did just fine. We appreciate it.
Thank
you
you.
so much. Any other public comment? Come on down, sir.
Good evening, Commission, Mr. Mayor.
Can you move that microphone up just
I'll be
a little
glad
bit?
to.
There we go.
I'm going to keep it brief. I know you're not voting on anything tonight, and I know that what we're doing right now is essentially directing the city manager to report back to you. And so I'd like you to consider something when you receive that report back. It's not a question whether you should do this. It's not a question of whether or not the charter schools would be better than being involved with the school board. But what I would like you to consider is the last decade or decade and a half that developers have come before you, and what they have told you is things about school capacity. And the answer that you have resoundingly given them over and over and over again is that's the responsibility of the school board, that's not our responsibility. If you do what Newberry First is asking, you won't be able to give that answer anymore. And so when folks come in front of you and say, there's no school capacity, we want the city of Newberry to turn down that development, you won't be able to pass the buck. It'll be you. And so my concern is that the current plan doesn't call for any classroom construction immediately. At some point down the road, maybe, once the finances are all sorted out, but it doesn't call for any classroom construction. And day one, you're going to be overcrowded. And it's going to be not somebody else's problem, but yours. And with all the growth, and I know that all of you, just like I do, when I get up and I go to work in the morning, I don't know if any of y'all know this, but I work in Lake City, and so I get to go north on US 41, and I drive by Avalon Woods every day and see all of those houses being built. I think about how long I lived in my house here in Newberry before we had our first child. It was about 2 years. So I expect that the population at those schools is going to be booming in a few years for all the houses that we've built. And so I just hope you all keep that in mind, and I hope that the city manager will let you all know what it looks like, what the capacity is going to look like, and what our projected growth looks like.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Rob Baker.
I'm sorry, I thought he said it. My apologies. He's so well known here. Any other public comment if anything's not on the agenda tonight? Come on down.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Darling, and thank you for letting me take this moment, Mayor Marlowe and Commissioners and Attorney Walker. My concern again is the corner of 8th Avenue and 254th Street. I know the last time I came, you all suggested that I call the Sheriff Department to take care of some of the issues around there. I have not called the Sheriff Department. However, I've asked questions to people at the Sheriff Department, and that I was told that is not their responsibility unless it gets into a altercation.
Can you, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt your time, but can you give me what are we talking about that's happening that they're saying is not?
The cleanup on the corner of 8th Avenue and 200.
Trash on the ground or
No,
inappropriate behavior cleanup?
No, the cars that have been sitting there for
Right.
over a year, wrecked cars not
On that
running.
point, I probably agree with the sheriff that that's something we need Wayne to go look at.
Now they have a mattress laying out on the sidewalk that has not been picked up for weeks. I don't know if the garbage department is going to pick that up, but they continually put trash out there. Like I say, we try to keep our property and everything else clean, but I don't want to get into an altercation with my neighbors.
Sure.
So I don't know if you all have to do when we don't pay our light bills or something, you all put door knockers on. Why not put something on their homes so they can fix this up? So that is a continued concern of mine, because I want the property, the area cleaned up. So
Yes,
thank you.
All right, thank you. Come on down, sir.
Hi, my name's Jeff Holcomb. I'm a Newberry resident, and I just wanted to speak to the charter school conversion. And again, to echo Rob Baker's, I know we're not voting on anything now, but just to kind of voice my concerns. I have a daughter that's at Oakview right now, and, we just applied to be in the magnet program, and that we might have applied to other magnet programs in the area if we had known this was coming. But we said we like Newberry, we like Oakview, we like this magnet program. Now, if she's going to be spending the next 3 years at Oakview, things could be very different. But really the point that I want to make is I don't think that this city commission really needs to be acting as a school board for 3 to 5 years. I've heard it said online and social media that 3 to 5 years, it's just temporary until we get a school board appointed. 3 to 5 years is a long time for a kid. I mean, my daughter's in 5th grade. It's like by the time the charter school, if the conversion happens, that's going to see her right through to high school. So that's a long time. And you all are very busy. I've sat through many of these meetings. You have an awful lot on your plates. I don't think being an acting school board is one of those duties you need to undertake. And I think if this does move forward, I think you need to think very seriously about putting a school board in place immediately, not in 3 to 5 years. I think people with an educational background, I know, Mr. Mayor, you're an educator, but for the rest of the commission.
I don't have any power anyway, yeah.
But for the rest of the commission, this is not in your wheelhouse, and I don't think that it's appropriate. And I think that we should leave, managing the school board to people with an educational background. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other public comment? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, everybody. We will move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published? I have a motion, second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. I'm sorry, Ms. Judy. The motion was made by Commissioner Martin. The second was made by Commissioner Coleman. Motion passed unanimously. That's going to take us to item published 4, which remember is first reading of legislative first reading of ordinance 2024-06. And guys, if you're a parent here, you've done your part. Go take care of your babies. You won't offend us by walking out at this point in time. We appreciate you giving up your evening to come down here. Thank you so much. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on first reading ordinance 2024-06/LDR 2406 into the record?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the text of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations as amended to amend Section 4.2.40 solar energy facilities relating to the establishing standards for the development of solar farms, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-06 upon its first reading by title only.
Thank you. And
yes, sir.
We just lost our presenter. I looked down, he was there, looked up, he's gone. Hey, coming right back. Okay. No, we are item 4, solar farms.
We approved consent, correct?
We approved consent. We already did.
Plans for having approved that.
That was on consent. Is the first item under public hearing and ordinances. Ready to go?
No, sir, just going to get the presentation and load it up. It accidentally got left off.
Should we skip down to 6 and do that while we're waiting? Because we can't do 5. We got to do legislative 4 quasi. Or should we just take a 5-minute adjournment? Well, it depends on, are you telling me that she's sending it on the email and it'll be in 30 seconds, or do we need 5 minutes? Do we need more time?
Probably 5 minutes, right? It's closer to 5.
Okay.
Can we do the plan? Yeah, we can do the plan. Item 5.
Item 5? That's quasi, but they're unrelated? Oh, yeah, they're unrelated. Okay. So we're going to flip-flop item 5 and item 4 while we wait for that. So we're going to move into quasi-judicial. That means I'm about to read the quasi-judicial procedure. Quasi-judicial procedure means that the commission will stop being a legislative body and become a judicial board. This means that they have to follow certain rules and adhere to a different standard of decision-making. The primary rule they must follow concerns testimony, and the substantial and competent evidence standard must be met when the judicial board makes a decision. This standard states the following: all public testimony taken under oath, everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered as evidence given testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. I'm going to ask the city attorney to read it in the record the ordinance on first reading, please.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending Chapter 82, Article 1, Section 82.3, entitled Downtown Plat Additions, providing for the closing, abandoning, release, and vacation of public alleyways, as shown on the plat entitled Original Newberry, Chapman and White's Edition, Plat Book A, page 95 of Alachua County Official Records, providing servability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-0 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. I'm not going to ask the city clerk to swear in the applicant, staff, and anybody wishing to participate. Guys, if you're here for any quasi-judicial tonight, go ahead and let's just, we're going to swear everybody in at one time. So just stand up, give the clerk your name, raise your right hand. She's going to ask you if you do. This is quasi-judicial. If you're here to speak to any quasi-judicial tonight. If it's public comment at the end, you're fine. But if you're going to want to give testimony during, we need you to swear in. There we go.
Starting on my left with
Mike Nate. Brian Thomas.
John Paul Perez. Jerry Diedenbach.
I swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You have to do this one.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin, we need to disclose any ex parte communications and disclose whether any member physically inspected the property. Remember that ex parte communications are any communication, conversations, or transmission of information that may have bearing or influence on any voting member's decisions. Let's go ahead and do ex parte for anything here tonight, and we'll let the attorney ask you any questions. Commissioner Coleman.
Mayor, I have none.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Clark.
None.
Commissioner Farnsworth.
None.
Commissioner Martin.
No.
Commissioner Mazon.
None.
I'm a non-voting mayor, but I have nothing to disclose as well. I'm going to explain the order of the presentations. We're going to follow tonight as long as no one new enters the room. I'm not going to have to read all this over again. So we're going to start with the staff overview. Then we're going to hear an applicant presentation with no time limit. Then staff has the opportunity to make a report and presentation, also with no time limit. Nobody has contacted me wishing to claim a third-party intervener status for any of the quasi-judicials before us tonight. So that's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public here to speak to any of these agenda items have 3 minutes to do so. Then the applicant has the opportunity to cross-examine staff and cross-examine to make invited through. The chair can ask questions of the applicant or the staff. Then final arguments will be made by the applicant or the staff related solely to the evidence testimony presented at the hearing and introduced into the record. City attorney will then advise decision make advice applicable on facts and findings must be made to approve or deny the application. Then we'll deliberate, and after deliberations, we'll have a motion to approve, condition, continue, or deny. I won't have to read that again, I promise, as long as no one else enters. Ms. Uma, come on down and give us a staff overview.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Before I start, I have a small error on my presentation. It's Chapter 82 and not Chapter 82M. I'm sorry about that. So I'm reading Ordinance 2024-01/VAC 2401. We are amending Chapter 82, Article 1, Section 82.3, that is Downtown Plat Addition. So the City of Newberry would like to amend Chapter 82, Article 1, Section 82.3, entitled Downtown Plat Addition, providing for closing, abandoning, releasing, and vacating of public right-of-way, as shown in the plat entitled the Original Newberry Chapman and White Edition, Plat Book A, page 95, Alachua County Official Record. So just to give you an overview, this whole downtown area, there were like some 17 of those plats were already added to the downtown plat area where, with the permission of the ordinance, the mayor or the city manager are authorized to hereby direct the execute the necessary deed to transfer the abutting owners to allow property lying to set right of way with City of Newberry retaining a perpetual utility easement on above, under, and through the property. So we are just adding one more plat to that is Chapman and White Edition. These all are the downtown plat, which has already been added in the ordinance 2514-14, and we are just adding Chapman and White Edition. This is the location of Chapman and White. And this is the original plat. Staff find the request compiling with the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulation. Staff recommend the City Commissioner to approve Ordinance 2401. No current or future improvement has been planned by the city. Right-of-way in split and return to the abutting landowners. Granting this vacation would not negatively impact the public health, safety, and welfare of the resident of Newberry. The ordinance shall be an amendment to Ordinance 25-14 and shall be codified in the City of Newberry Code of Ordinance, Chapter 82, entitled Street, Sidewalk, and Other Public Places, and the city shall remain the perpetual blanket of utility easement on the cities in this alleyway. With this, I would like to ask commissioners to approve Ordinance 2401/VAC 2401 on first reading.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
here for any questions if they have.
Did they have a presentation?
No. So this was actually just to give you a background. They started with Ms. Hogan's petition for her alleyway, but then as a city staff, we decided that since all the other plats have already been included in the downtown plat in Ordinance 2514, we decided to add the whole area in this petition.
Got it. All right. Thank you, ma'am. I'll move us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item, you have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, did you hear anything, ma'am, you want to cross-examine? No? I'm assuming you don't want to cross-examine yourself. Members of the decision-making body, you got any questions of staff? No? Kind of straightforward. Did you want, no. Final arguments, you want to make a final argument? Don't have to. Mr. Attorney, will you please advise the decision-making body to put the law factual findings?
Substantial and competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, any public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. You have your vacation. Not the kind you want in your mind, right? Okay, now are we ready to go back to number 4? Or are we still? We need one. But the second reading will be fine. You don't have to, because you're driving up 2 hours, right? Do we have item 4? We do. Okay, so we're going to go back to item 4. Item 4 is legislative. Mr. Attorney, you already read that into the record? Okay. And now we are ready to get back on track.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the first reading of this ordinance before the commission. There's been a lot of discussion over the last several months. It did go before the Planning and Zoning Board on January 1st, 2nd. So basically, just to give you the background again, in 2019, City adopted an ordinance to encourage the development of solar farms within the City of Newberry, making them allowable as a use by right in agricultural zoning districts, rather. In 21, the state legislature followed suit with basically a state statute that states very similar language to what the city had already adopted. There is a potential solar farm developer looking at, or has purchased a large plot, actually, in the southwest area of the City of Newberry. And we have a neighborhood group, the Neighbors of Southwest Newberry, that filed a letter with the city requesting the city amend the ordinance that regulates solar farm development. Just a review of the state statutes. Basically, it says that in agriculture, they can be located there by right. This continues with the state statute review. And so the current land development regulations, we will highlight the changes. So again, shall be allowed as a permitted use in all agricultural areas, plus a few others, industrial, planned development, planned rural residential development. No changes there. Supporting facilities are permitted. Obviously, you have to have the supporting facilities to operate the solar farm. Performance standards, here's where we start making some changes. Currently, we have a minimum of 10-foot setback or buffer with no landscaping required unless the support buildings are present. So what, with all the feedback from the commission, the feedback from the Planning and Zoning Board, and some from the residents, we've amended that to a minimum of a 25-foot setback. So the difference between a buffer and a setback is the setback is the closest that you can have a structure constructed to the property line. The buffer can fall between there. It could be the whole 25 feet, or it could be less. And so the setback requirement is 25 feet from the property line around the entire perimeter of the property, however large or however shape that takes. If it's adjacent to, if there's an existing vegetative area, then the developer would be required to maintain that as much as 15 feet deep. If the solar farm array is adjacent to existing residential development in agriculture, as the proposed area is adjacent to quite a few homes, then everywhere they're adjacent to those homes, then they would be responsible for planting a 20-foot deep vegetative buffer within that 25-foot setback area. It would not be in addition. It wouldn't be then a 45-foot setback or buffer. It would be a 20-foot vegetative buffer in the 25-foot setback perimeter where it's adjacent to the existing residential. Not requiring them to go to the expense of planting, very large trees or large shrubs. They can grow to opacity within 5 years. Gives a little bit of time to grow. It does mean they have to maintain them, obviously, until they're mature. Must be surrounded by minimum 6-foot chain link fence. Change that to allow for other types of fencing to promote wildlife movement, because a chain link fence, most small animals can't actually get through it. They might be able to climb over it. Height restrictions, we didn't make any changes on any of the elements. The solar panels can be up to 15 feet tall. However, the industry has told us that they're usually about 7 to 8 feet tall tops. Again, 20-foot wide clear access way for maintenance, no changes there, and no changes on the internal roadways in terms of stabilized access paths. Those are required for emergency response if necessary. Site and development plans have to be approved by the LDR administrator. We did not change that. Again, 30 days of submittal, either approve with conditions, or deny. And site and development plans that require a variance, rather. Modification of the standards shall be required to approve by the Board of Adjustment. So basically, as long as they meet all the criteria within our code, it can be approved administratively. If they need to vary from that, it has to go before the Board of Adjustment for review and approval. Staff's recommended action is approve ordinance 2024-06 by the City Commission on first reading.
All right, thank you, sir. This is, it was
It was originally scheduled for January 22nd.
Right.
Did not make it on the January 2nd agenda, so it's actually
this
first
is
reading.
the first. Okay, questions for Brian? Commissioner Clark.
Brian, one thing, that 20-foot, is that inside their wire, that 20-foot of their access? So you got a 25-foot setback, then you got a 20-foot maintenance. Is that inside there?
It could be inside, it could be outside. The setback area, it does state in the code that they can put their driveways if they need to in there, as long as there's no buffer. They can't, no matter what, if there's
they can't do it on all edges if you got a 20-foot.
Correct. If
then you'd be 40 foot.
It would have to be inside of the.
Right, be inside the wire.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is that it, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Commissioner Martin, you look like you're pondering on a potential question. No? Okay. There are no. Yep, go ahead.
Brian, you said you had some input from the community group there. Can you kind of delve into that a little bit more, exactly what transpired?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, the community group did provide a letter with some fairly extensive requests. Things like they were requesting a 300-foot setback or buffer area minimum around the entire perimeter. And that, a lot of that was based on their concerns about noise coming from the inverters that are necessary to convert the solar-generated energy into alternating current. The industry presentation and then also research staff has done indicate that the noise from those inverters fades fairly rapidly and at 300 feet, which is what their standard is. They cluster the inverters throughout the development based on the location of the solar arrays. And so each of those will be a minimum of 300 feet inside of the array, from the perimeter of the array, so that would actually be a total of a minimum of 325 feet, including the setback line. According to the research I was able to find, the noise from those inverters diminishes to the point where you can't distinguish it between background noise when you get beyond 300 feet. And also, too, at least this particular I can't even call them an applicant because they haven't turned in an application yet. They've indicated they won't be turning an application in for another couple of years. But they have indicated that they are not going to install a battery structure to store the energy, so the inverters would not be running at night. So the inverters will actually only be making noise during the day when they're generating electricity. There were also some concerns about electromagnetic radiation. Again, staff couldn't find any excessive or specific research that supports the idea that there's excessive electromagnetic radiation generated by a solar array. That was another thing to try to create more distance under the potential that it might create that. Closest we could find is if you're standing right next to the inverters, you get a slightly higher than recommended, or not even actually, I think half of what the recommended electromagnetic dose was, something to that effect. But we didn't find any evidence that to support the concern that there was excessive electromagnetic radiation generated. So that was some of the primary concerns. Also, that it creates a heat well. It raises the overall temperature because the panels are going to absorb heat rather than plant life, which would absorb the heat and dissipate it more. So.
Okay. Other questions? No? All right, I'll need a motion. I have to have a motion first to go to public comment. I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman. Second from Commissioner Martin. All right, any comments, questions on the motion floor from the dais? We spent an awful lot of time talking about this. I applaud staff for listening to the residents' concerns out there and doing everything that we can to make sure that this is a good compromise between the solar company and the folks out there. I like the line of sight. I think you guys have done a great job at that and protecting. One more time, guys, we are sort of bound here by state law at this point in time. There's very limited range we were kind of before the state, but now the state has preempted us. So, there's not a whole lot here except what we're doing, which is put those sort of limitations on making sure that they're good neighbors. But beyond that, state law has already superseded our ability to do much more than what this ordinance is doing already. Anybody got questions? Good. No questions from the dais. Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor.
Jeff Holcomb again, Newberry resident and representative of the neighbors of Southwest Newberry. So thank you to the commission and staff for this. I do appreciate it, and going over our concerns. I will say 25 feet is better than 10. It's certainly less than 300, but some of those concerns that we listed, in addition to just the aesthetics of not wanting to look at an ugly solar array, they are legitimate scientific concerns. There's peer-reviewed scientific studies that I have shared with the commission about magnetic fields, heat island effect, low tunnel humming sounds, and so these aren't arbitrary numbers like we are asking for further distance. But I will say that a lot of the assurances that we've got from Florida Renewable Partners are really just handshake agreements. We haven't put anything in writing. They say that they'll, cluster their inverters further away from residents, but what if you happen to be the house that's right next to one? They never agreed that they would put them all in the center. Other things that I would really like to see, and I brought this up at the January 2nd Planning and Zoning meeting, I do appreciate saying that there needs to be a 20-foot vegetative buffer when there is an existing residence on the adjacent property. I think it would be advantageous to define what adjacent means, because I have a feeling that in the past, Florida Renewable Partners said it would cost them millions of dollars to plant such a vegetative buffer. They're not going to want to do that. And I counted about 50 residential properties, or they're zoned agricultural with residences on them, that border this property where they're going to build. They might say, if it's across the street, like, oh, that's not adjacent. If it's across County Road 337, I count 20 houses that are going to have a line of sight right at this solar farm. I think it's important to say in the ordinance, adjacent still includes across the street. Another matter we haven't talked about is there's one whole side, the west side of this property is on the Gilchrist County line on Southwest 298. You might say, oh, it's not our problem, that's Gilchrist County's problem. But they did buy property in Newberry, so there are residences that are across the street. It's in another county, but will they get out of that? I imagine if they could save a couple $1 million, they probably will. Another thing I think it's important with the vegetative buffer, asking that it be planted so that it comes to maturity within 5 years. Why not put something in writing that says, once the site plan is submitted and approved, they start planting? Because they're not planning to break ground until 2027. We've got 3 years. I know that these things take a lot of time. I know they don't want to plant anything until they've finished all of their work, but why not take advantage if we've got some time? Let's start planting the vegetative buffer now. All right, well, thank you. That's my time, but thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Other public comment? Okay, seeing none. I will say I did read both of the studies that were peer-reviewed. I actually handed them off to some science teachers because sometimes you want that. I think both of them were somewhere in the 1970s, and what I read and what the science teachers confirmed is exactly what Brian said, that those studies were about very, very close proximity. If I'm working right next to this, right, within 10 feet all day long, that's when they found marginal effects. But when you're a distance away, and technology changes quite a bit. So when you talk about scientific peer-reviewed studies, you need something a little bit more closer in time. So, Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, I read through the studies as well. They are more geared towards employee environmental sort of conditions for operation. I did have a question for staff. With regards to planting ahead of time, does that in itself even require some element of a site plan to be developed? The planning to specifically put them in certain places, does that really require a site plan, or could they do that?
Mr. Mayor, when they come in and submit for their site plan approval, that would be part of the site plan approval itself. So it would be part and parcel of the overall site plan. So they would be required to identify where they're going to make those plantings along the perimeters. As part of the site plan, they could start early. It, I guess, conceivably could be a requirement of the site plan that the first thing that they do is start planting. But oftentimes, developers don't want to plant the landscaping until they're almost at the end because they don't want to disturb what they've already invested in planting with the heavy equipment that might be running in and out while they're doing the construction phase.
One other follow-up, Mr. Mayor. To a couple of the citizens' comments about where things are on the property and that sort of stuff, we'll have another bite at the apple to sort of coach that along when the site plan actually comes before us, correct?
Yes, sir. Once the site plan is submitted, we'll have an actual idea of where everything within the array is going. The array, the inverters, any other facilities, the substation that's going to be required and all of that. That'll be defined as part of the site plan, so at that point, we'll know.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Farnsworth.
So regarding the site plan, how much power control does the city have to have in directing that compared to what the state law says?
Mr. Mayor, is staff's understanding that the state requires that it's allowed by right. It doesn't necessarily define what you can require within the site plan. And so we would not be able to do anything that would prevent them from developing a solar array in the approval process for the site plan. But we could implement certain conditions as a approval, conditions of approval for the site plan, like any other commercial development.
Brian, talk to me about the line of sight, because this is a long agenda, so we've done a lot of reading. And one of the questions was, adjacent, what does that mean? I thought our language was line of sight. If there's an existing house that's in line of sight, there's a requirement to plant some vegetative buffering. Does a road exempt?
Mr. Mayor, in most planning applications, if a roadway runs between two parcels, the parcel on the opposite side of the road is still considered directly adjacent. Okay. And so those would be included in the adjacency requirement.
And I understand what staff is saying, that you don't want to plant a whole lot of money in landscaping and then have trucks going in and out, but it also seems like we're talking about the perimeter, the edge, right? And a lot of the houses that are back there are kind of set off deep. The only thing that concerns me about that is I don't know how the whole point here is that we're codifying these in an ordinance, because if you don't pass this ordinance tonight, well, then my understanding, the solar company could come in and say, well, I'm just going to do what the adjacent zoning is, and now we're back to 10 feet, right? So this is our opportunity to kind of put some stipulations on, but whatever we put in here also is on the next person. I don't know that we have another distribution line running through Newberry that with a big set of land. I could be wrong about that. So I kind of think like this is our only one of these that's coming to us, but I'm not an engineer. So is there a way to put in this ordinance that we would like them to go ahead and start planting some of these line of sight things? I don't know how to phrase that though, in a way that couldn't be. I think it's possible this one, but I can also see how it could be a problem for future applicants.
It would be, Mr. Mayor, it would be difficult to make a requirement of that type, given that we don't have any kind of an actual application in hand.
Yeah. Could we put that stipulation once we get to the site plan and say, okay, this is what you're doing, but that site plan is not going to come for another 3 years, so.
Right. Okay. I think at best we could try to work with the potential applicant to identify those properties and then do some advanced planning if they're willing. If there's still, according to them, a number of hurdles that have to be overcome before they can even put the array in. And so it's doubtful that before all of those at least were accomplished, that they would make that additional investment in advance of site plan approval.
All right, Commissioner Coleman.
I don't know if you went the same way I did up there, that wedding up there. They planted right up next, put those solar panels right next to the road. They didn't put any. It made, here, beautiful farms, hilly, and then boom, they're right on top of these roads.
Yeah. He's working on it. All right. Yeah, I saw the same thing. I thought the same thought.
Yeah.
Commissioner Maison?
How come the berms?
Berms. We had talked about berms.
On the outside of the chain link fence, why not?
Did we
though?
talk about Burns?
For this company, it's just too expensive.
Yeah.
That's-
Mr. Mayor,
If we put it in our ordinance, they have to pay for it, right? If they want to bring them.
Mr. Mayor, berms typically are used for sound attenuation, not necessarily visual attenuation, although they also can serve that purpose as well. But to a large extent, since sound is not considered to be sound attenuation is not considered one of the objectives, it would be, it probably would be an excessive cost to the developer.
Is that what you're going to say, Mr. New?
I was just going to mention that one of the conditions of state law that we are now working under is that solar facilities shall be permitted in all agricultural land use categories in a local government comprehensive plan and in agricultural zoning districts, and must comply with the setback and landscape buffer area criteria for other similar uses in the agricultural district. Someone is going to take that and say, if you require extensive buffering or extensive berming for a solar farm, you're going to have to do it for every other ag endeavor in Newberry city limits, and I think that's an area that we have to be aware of when we make that decision.
And that,
Right. I'm on board with Mr. Holcomb. I think in jest he said like 25 feet, but at least it's better than 5 feet or whatever. It really, we can't go, what was it first brought to us? So it's 250 foot?
you made the request from the residents or
Yeah, the residents.
I think it was 300.
300. And we've compromised that, or we're at 25 feet?
Well, it's not really a compromise. State law says that you have to fairly well conform with the existing uses around, which are ag, and ag is 10, so we can go to 25. Much after that, now you're starting to get into that phrase that he just read off, which was if you put conditions on solar farms, which are agriculture, they're farming sunlight, right, that you don't put on farmers who are throwing out fertilizer, to an excessive degree, right, then you're opening yourselves up to liability.
Well, I mean, I see on fence lines everywhere, if you really, I haven't went out with a tape, but there are at least 100 foot of windrow with trees growing along the fence lines and stuff.
That's their
and
choice.
And here we are
right.
sitting here at 25 feet for the rest of these families.
That's the farmer's choice, though. It's not state law. It's not our law.
Okay.
Other, Commissioner Martin.
Does the issue of the chain link fence unduly burden the farmer?
It's a good question, Scott.
Honestly,
right? Because that's a very expensive, compared to field fence, that's
Whatever you're doing has to be of similar nature to ag. So that's the criteria. The language in the statute is a solar facility shall be permitted in all ag land use categories in a local government comprehensive plan in all agricultural zoning districts within the unincorporated area and must comply with the setback and landscape buffered area criteria for other similar uses in the ag district. So as long as you're in similar nature to whatever you do in your ag district, you're going to be okay. You go outside of that, then there's going to be difficulty.
Well, I'm just playing devil's advocate, I guess, with regards to the requirement of the chain link fence. Seems like it's an undue burden as well, which is perfectly fine with me because I think chain link fences are ugly as sin.
We did. Mr. Mayor, that's actually part of what's being amended is it's allowing for other types of fencing as well that are more amenable to the small animals being able to get in and out. So we took the chain link fencing requirement out, allows for other types of fencing.
Oh, you're taking it out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So then what fencing are we doing?
I think it was field fence because that's what the animals can get through. Don't worry about deer; they can jump over a 6 foot, 10 foot fence.
And Just to reiterate, the reason staff didn't suggest the 300-foot buffer, there is a agricultural use that we do require a 300-foot buffer on, but it's high-intensity agriculture like slaughterhouses and things like that. It's not passive use, such as a solar array.
Okay. I can hear Trevor Bass's well from 50 acres away.
Well, my question here is that, once again, going back to Mr. Holcomb, I don't know how close he lives to, but you're within, I don't care how thick it is. If we're only they're gonna plant plants at 25 foot. Brother, I don't care how long, and you wanna hurry up and get these plants planted right now. For the next 15 years, you're still gonna see through there and see every daggum one of them.
All right, Commissioner Coleman, I just want to cut to the chase because we got a long night. So
I understand.
If you vote no, then all of these conditions, as minimal as you seem to think they are, they go away, and the state law comes in, and you're back to 10 feet. Right. So I know we all want to, and I applaud staff for working for over a year at this point, 2 years, to try to do what we can within the boundary of the law to compromise with these residents. But voting no takes away what little bit we've been able to give the residents, takes that off the plate. So just so we're all clear on, because we're going to be here till about 11 o'clock anyway tonight.
11:30.
Yeah.
So has the application been put in, or did you say it'd be put in 2 years? So if we say yes tonight, will we have a chance to, if we think of something, can we bring this back up, bring this back in front of the commission?
Mr. Chair, we would, if in the intervening years, other ideas come up for other mitigating factors. I guess, one of the reasons that staff does not suggest requiring a complete perimeter buffer is, as it was stated earlier, that would cost millions of dollars. It's also something we don't require of anyone else in agriculture, so it would most likely be challengeable on that basis, that it's not a requirement that we impose on any other agricultural use.
Commissioner Clark, you're no. All right, Madam Clerk, did I have a motion already? Seems like I had a motion because we opened it up for the public. Okay. Do we need a roll call? Roll call, Commissioner Coleman.
Do what now?
Roll call. Motion on the floor to approve it.
Well, I have no choice.
Aye, Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Maison. Motion passes unanimously. Just giving you the opportunity, right? All right, thank you, Brian. That's going to move us. Now we switched 4 and 5, but we're back on track with 6. Is that right, Madam Clerk? This is legislative second reading of ordinance 2024-04/CPA 2402. Mr. Attorney, would you please read that into the record? Come on down, Miss Uma. He'll get it there. We've just been swapping around on him at night,
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan of 29 acres of land under the small-scale amendment procedures established under the small-scale amendment provisions of Section 163.3187 of the Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from Alachua County rural agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to the City of Newberry agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel numbers are 02579-005-000, 02579-006-000, and 02579-007-000, consisting of approximately 29 contiguous acres of land, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is pass ordinance number 2024-04 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Uma, come on down and tell us about this ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, Commissioner. This is Uma Sarmishta, Planning and Economic Development. Department, I am presenting ordinance 2024-04, CPA 24-2 for future land use map amendment from county rural agriculture to city of Newberry agriculture on 29-acre land. This is a second reading, and just to confirm, there was no change on the ordinance since its first reading. I'll just give you the overview and then the staff finding. So this is to amend future land use classification on recently annexed parcel from Alachua County to city of Newberry. It is a like-to-like future land use map amendment. The parcel was annexed on December 11, 2023. This is the overview of the parcel. The parcels are 02579-000, 005-000, 02579-006-000, 02579-007-000. Petition is by Herb Marlowe Jr. As I said, it is a like-to-like future land use map amendment. The first Planning and Zoning Commission was on January 2nd. The first commissioner hearing was on January 8th, and this is the small-scale transmission, so it was not gone to the state. But after the enactment, it will go to, we will inform the Department of Commerce on the adoption. So this is a legislative and staff finding request consistency with the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulation, and recommend the City Commissioner for approval of Ordinance 2024-04, CPA 24-2 in second reading.
You did a great job with all those numbers. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner, this second reading. Do you have any questions? If there are no questions, I'll have a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments, questions, motion floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to be entering a quasi-judicial. Ms. Janine, has anybody new entered the chamber?
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. That means we don't have to read back through all of this. We did, we swore everybody in, and we did ex parte. Mr. Attorney, would you please read into the record that on second reading ordinance 2024-05/LDR 24-05, please?
Yes, sir. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 29 acres, more or less, pursuant to an application amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agricultural A zoning district to the City of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been recently annexed thereto. Tax parcel numbers are 02579-005-000, 02579-006-000, and 02579-007-000, providing servability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is passed ordinance number 2024-05 on its reading by title only.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to start off with staff overview. Since I don't see that applicant present, just go right on into staff's presentation. And you could rest on the last presentation if you want to.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Commissioner. This is Uma Mishra, Planning and Economic Development Department, and as we discussed, it's the same case, and I want to carry on with the same presentation, if that's okay with the commissioners.
Perfectly fine.
Okay. So should I do the recommendation?
I don't think so. You just read it. You just say that we'll rest on the last
Rest on the
presentation
last,
for the
okay.
record.
So moved.
Second.
We don't have to motion on that. She's just going to rest on it. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll move us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item, you have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, we're not going to cross-examine. Members' decision making body, do you have any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move through final arguments. Mr. Attorney, would you advise the decision making body applicable on factual findings?
Substantial and competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We'll enter into deliberations. If there aren't any deliberations, I'll have a vote. I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Martin. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That takes us out of quasi-judicial, back to legislative. This is second reading of ordinance 2024-02/CPA 2401. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on second reading that ordinance into the record.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.3184, subparagraphs 2 and 3 of the Florida statutes, in conformance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for a change in land use classification from Alachua County Rural Agricultural, less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres, to the City of Newberry Agricultural, less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres, on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel number is 02659-000-000, consisting of approximately 161 contiguous acres, providing salvability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is passed ordinance 2024-02 as read by title only.
Thank you, man. Come on down, Ms. Uma. Talk to the commission again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. This is Uma Sarmishta, Planning and Economic Development Department. I am reading Ordinance 2024-2, CPA 2401, for future land use map amendment from County Rural Agriculture to City of Newberry Agriculture on 161 acre land. This is amendment of the future land use classification of the recently annexed parcel. It is like future land use map amendment. The parcel was annexed on December 11, 2023. This is the approx location of the property. It's very near to the watermelon pond. The parcel number is 02659-000-000, and the petitioner is whitehurstcastle.co. It is again future land use amendment. The Planning and Zoning Board hearing was on 2nd January 2024. The first commissioner hearing was on January 8, 2024. It is a large-scale transmission, so it went to Department of Commerce, and we received no comment letter on February 9, 2024. It's legislative. Here we have the presentation. I think we have the applicant here, CHW, and they have a small presentation. If Mayor allow, we can ask them to have the presentation. Okay, so I think they are good without presentation, so can I carry on with my...
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the response letter from the Florida Commerce. State find the request consistent with the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulation. And staff recommend approval of Ordinance 2024-02/CPA 2401. I'm here for any questions.
Does the board have any questions? Again, this is second reading. Anybody watching at home, I know we're kind of moving fast, but you've talked to us about these a lot. No questions, then I'll have a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions, motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Uma, don't go anywhere. We're going to go back to quasi-judicial now. Nobody new has entered the room, so we're good to go. We're going to ask the attorney to read on second reading ordinance 2024-03/LDR 2404 into the record, please, sir.
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 161 acres, more or less, pursuant to an application, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agricultural A zoning district to the City of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto. Tax parcel number is identified as 02659-000-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is pass ordinance number 2024-03 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Uma, go ahead and give us the overview, and if they still don't want to make a presentation, go straight into your staff report, feeling free to rest on the record that presentation you previously read into record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Uma Sarmishta, and again, there was no comment from the state. We don't have any change from the ordinance when it was read, so if the commissioners agree, I want to rest the same presentation for this case and just move to the recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, so-
And the applicant doesn't want to make a presentation? Correct. You can give me a head nod, it's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We want to rest on the presentation that has been previously given, excuse me, the Department of Commerce letter of no comments, and the staff presentation.
Thank you, sir. That's going to move us to to public comments. Any member of the public wish to speak to this item, you have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, we're going to move all the way down to member decision-making body. Do you have any questions that you didn't have on first reading? Anything come up? No? That's going to take us to, Mr. Attorney, would you please advise decision-making body applicable law and factual findings?
Substantial competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion. Have a motion from Commissioner Martin, who was a second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions, on motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We're going to move right on to item 10, right? Okay, this is legislative public hearing on first reading of ordinance 2024-07/CPA 2313. Mr. Attorney, would you please read that ordinance into the record?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to the amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.3184, subparagraphs 2 and 3 of the Florida statutes, and in conformance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for a change in future land use classification from agriculture to material-oriented industrial development on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, the south portion of tax parcels 01875-000-000 and 01875-001-000, consisting of approximately 50 acres of land, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is pass ordinance 2024-07 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. You give Uma a rest?
Yes, sir.
All right, take it away.
Figure she had enough tonight.
Yeah.
This is an application to change the future land use on 50 acres of land. It's in the northwest quadrant. It's across the street and adjacent to Avalon Woods and the city's recreation area. The eastern boundary is located on State Road 45. The western boundary is on the existing, still active rail line, which is a critical component of why this application is being forwarded. So ordinance 2024-07, again, it's the south 50 acres of 2 parcels, existing parcels. The application is being presented by CHW Professional Consultants on behalf of Ed Norfleet Jr. and Phyllis Norfleet and Katrina Bill, property owners. Basically, it's to, as stated, amend the future land use map classification from agriculture to materials-oriented industrial use. The property was strategically chosen because of its proximity on the rail line for the intent. One of the intended uses that they have, they need rail access to make that work. And it's time for the applicants. That's the overview. It's time for the applicant's presentation.
All right, come on down.
Chance to warm up. I thought I had the cold Arctic blast there between myself and Patrice and Ms. Maurer there. Good evening, y'all. This is Jerry from CHW Professional Consultants here to talk to you about a requested small-scale amendment and rezoning. We have one presentation in realizing that you have 2 items here. However, it always blends over where people have questions about zoning and land use, so we're going to present in a unified manner, knowing that you will have to take 2 votes this evening. So, why are we here? Well, in concert with the large-scale land use amendment for the Norfleet property, Mr. Norfleet wishes to make a material-oriented industrial area that sits on the southeast corner of the overall project site. This will allow for a vast variety of economic development opportunities to create a small business park here by which construction staging and construction preparation and materials preparation can occur. Specifically, the 50 acres sits, and it is bounded on the east side by State Road 45 and on the west side by the rail line. That was a strategic choice in placement here because aggregate materials that would be used in the production of roads, curbs, and other aspects of the development could be brought in by rail and utilized on the west portion of this property. Doing so, that leaves us a tremendous amount of area on the east portion of the property where we could place uses such as kitchen and bath shops or carpentry shops or cabinet shops or window shops, and allow for material selection to occur proximate to the overall Norfleet or NC Ranch property. This will minimize the amount of traffic that has to come to the property by having an actual storage area and preparation area there whereby materials can be dispatched throughout the project site. So looking at its orientation relative to the overall master plan, you see the master plan for NC Ranch just faded in the green area here. By concentrating the area where workers, folks that are visiting the property to deliver materials go, we can have internal access and create the internal road network. So that alleviates traffic to a good deal on State Road 45 and on 46 to the north, because the roads that are internal to the property can become the functional construction roads of the property. So that spine that runs north-south where we're planning a linear park can be a delivery route so that throughout the phases of the project, as materials such as structured beams, trusses, different elements of the housing and commercial products are built, they can be trucked right through the site from this 50 acres on the southeast corner here. So effectively, that can serve as a spine road, removing the necessity to use State Road 45 and 46 into Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4, Phase 5, Phase 6, Phase 7, and so forth. So that will help also bed down those roads by having construction vehicles operating internal to the property rather than out on the state road. Now, in this overall process here, we envision that this land will probably be transitory in nature. So 50, 55 years into the future, when all the homes are done, this land could be something else. So that will be a choice for commissions a half century in the future if they choose not to keep material-oriented production there. But what we're talking about are the on-site abilities to build things like roof trusses, structured flooring beams, kitchen and bath shops and cabinet shops, as well as a batch plant so that we could actually bring aggregate in and mix the concrete and mix the materials on site that would build the sidewalks, the roadways, the walkways, the pathways, and the foundations right here on property, and then have showrooms in there. So if you wanted to make carpet choices, tile choices, kitchen and bath hardware choices, that could be all done in this business-oriented park here on the southeast corner of the overall master plan. This would still have access to State Road 45, so as vendors and families come to look at different products, they could access from the state road, but then the construction activities would happen through the west side of the property up into the actual NC Ranch master plan. We began this process in the fall of last year. We submitted our documents in October. Staff reviewed them through the fourth quarter of last year, and we appeared at the Planning and Zoning Board at the beginning of February, and we're happy to be here tonight. This year is flying by. PZB unanimously approved motions recommending both the land use and zoning changes, and we are hoping that you accept staff's recommendation and that of your advisory board this evening. So here's the existing future land use map. It is agriculture today, and we are requesting material-oriented industrial for this property. If you look at the overall future land use map of the northern half of the city of Newberry, you can see that there are many different types of land use out there. I recall about 20 years ago when we were working with Mr. Rowland on Newtown 1894, that there was an industrial park put just to the south of Newtown 1894. And so as the city continues to grow, it has a variety of uses that are strategically placed to help, if you will, facilitate the overall design and construction of the elements of the city. They may be transitory in use at some time in the future. Those industrial parks may not be valid anymore 50, 100 years into the future, but they remain there so that they can help the development that is occurring in those quadrants or sections of the city.
Jerry, can I pause you for
Yes,
just
sir.
1 second? So it is absolutely true. The P&Z voted unanimously to move it to you guys, but there was one question that needed to be answered in between the P&Z and now. We got a curveball thrown at us at the end of the P&Z meeting that related to the material-oriented industrial development. And the P&Z asked a question once they found out that you could not condition straight zoning. The question became, what activities by right can happen in material-oriented industrial development? So since we mentioned that the P&Z voted unanimously, can we now answer for the commission, what can the applicant do by right in material-oriented industrial development?
Well, you must have read my mind that the slide
Is that the next slide? Look at that.
Very, very close. He's got this sort of mentor teacher kind of thing, like, we know you're going to have this question, so Mr. Diedenbach, if you didn't bring this slide here, you can go back. So I'm going to talk about that. It actually isn't the very next slide, but we do have that addressed. Yes. So when making a choice for a map amendment to your comprehensive plan, you have to look at several elements for consistency. And the City of Newberry's comprehensive plan, as staff stated, does support a change like this because this property abuts a state highway. It will allow for resource-based uses on the subject property, and it serves the surrounding community, okay? So if you're building here, or if you're building in Archer or Alachua, materials could be generated right here that could go into the built environment, or homes or businesses right here in the town. Also, the future land use plan and the future land use element state explicitly that these type uses are designed to meet the needs of existing and projected future populations. So this is strategically located to do just that. And you saw the types of uses that would be proposed here. They are responsive to the fact that residential and non-residential structures will be built proximate to this. And then, I'm not going to bother to read this, but in your objectives of your comprehensive plan, they talk specifically on how development helps support other development in the community. So to answer the mayor's question, there was a good question about what can happen. So today the land use has agricultural and it has a matching agricultural zoning. It would be appropriate to switch that to industrial, and similar to your overall future land use map, you can see your zoning atlas has, again, kind of a patchwork, if you will, of different types of development forms out there. In your land development code, the material-oriented industrial uses have to come through a special exception or a special use type process. So while this is going for a straight zoning category, which isn't conditionable like a planned development, there are built-in safeguards in your land development regulations that state exactly how a project would actually occur in the site. So I will show you that. Here is an aerial of the site, and you can see that this has the topographic lines on it. If you look at the east side or the right side of the map, you can see that the elevation along State Road 45 there is generally about 76 to 78 feet above sea level. The center portion of the site, where that little yellow line comes down through the center of the two parcels, is 80 feet. So there's about a 10-foot rise, and then it drops off to the west toward the railroad track and declines about 18 feet. Okay, so there's a nice little hill or a little knoll there, and the west side of the site is sitting much lower than the east side of the site. So from the beginning, we want to let you know that the existing tree lines on the west side of the property provide a good buffer because Mr. Norfleet himself will be building homes and residences up against that buffer. The southern portion of the site has existing tree line, and there are areas where there's some gaps in the perimeter there where additional buffering would be required. But you're going to be looking at individual uses at some point in the future. There is no specific use tonight or site plan that is being proffered. At the time when a site plan comes through, if it's for a kitchen and bath shop, you're probably not going to be too worried about buffering. They're going to have a parking lot, they're going to have a showroom, and they may have a warehouse in the back. But if the application comes through for something like a truss building, where they would be inside of an enclosed structure and using laser-guided saws to build and fabricate trusses or engineered flooring elements, you'd want to have specific criteria on that. So as you consider the rest of the site, you can see that the eastern portion against State Road 45 and the northern portion today don't have a lot of trees or buffering. So at the time a site plan would come forward, it would be the time where you would place requirements for the use-specific request that was going to happen. So obviously, a beautiful entry saying, welcome to NC Ranch Business Park, or welcome to our light industrial or our building materials park here. You'd want to probably place the heavier uses, which would be reliant on the railway, on the west side of the property, behind the hill, in an area that has existing buffering. And then to do that, given those existing tree lines and those areas where there are gaps there, if you were looking at this property in a three-dimensional sort of oblique, you might want to do something, and what the Planning and Zoning Board talked a lot about was placing a berm or a berm with vegetation around an area. And so what I illustrated in here is enclosing, like in a solid bermed and vegetated area, where you might put a batch plant. Whereas on the east side, you might have showrooms, like for kitchen and bath shops, like they have, in, let's think, like Hale Village North. It's right next to a Publix. It's not a noxious use. That could be pretty and be out on the front there along State Road 45, whereas the heavier uses may be inside of a screened area that's fully vegetated and behind a berm. Now, what gives you the ability to do that, when you have these specific uses, how businesses will proceed, if it's a truss shop versus a cabinet shop versus a batch plant versus like kitchen and bath, your land development code specifically says, and this is to the mayor's point here, in section 14.7, special permits for industrial-based uses, industrial resource-based uses or activities shall require a special use permit. So you don't need to have specific conditions on the land use and zoning, because anybody or anyone who's coming forward to do a use in here would have to come through this Planning and Zoning Board and Commission to get that use approved. And at that time, you could place site-specific conditions upon that. Moreover, in section 12.2, the special exceptions, it states, when special exceptions should be granted, to grant a special exception with appropriate conditions and safeguards, it's the job of the commission to ensure that those will happen, which could include time limits on a business operating. So you say, we're not going to allow you to batch plant at 2 o'clock in the morning. We'll allow you to go from sun up to sundown, but those noisier uses or uses that can't be contained inside of a sound attenuated building may have certain conditions on it. And there was a lot of discussion at the Planning and Zoning Board about that, because the initial staff report had some conditions that would carry over, and we wanted to be really clear that they don't need to be in this action tonight, because there's no specific use being talked about. This is just the change of effectively the colors on the map to give someone the right to try to apply for something.
Okay, so Jerry, what you're saying is this zoning package, no by right, but it opens up a whole lot of things that you can come and ask for special exception and that you wouldn't necessarily be able to ask for in a different zoning package. But the person or firm or company that wants to do a truss factory would be the applicant, which may be this applicant, it may be a different applicant, but every single thing that goes on there that comes for a special exception is entitled to its own conditional state.
So yes, Mr. Mayor, you get many bites at the apple here. So each applicant that is coming through to get a special use permit, special exception, is effectively going to be at this podium, and you're going to judge them on a case-by-case basis, and you're going to look for specific site condition appropriateness. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, kind kind of closing in on this. When we look at the compatibility issues, when we're changing land use and zoning in a community, you have to kind of look at the patterns that are out there. And so the oblique aerial that's on the left-hand side shows you about 20 years ago, there was an industrial park that was just south of Newtown, 1894. It's about 1.2 miles north of State Road 26. And then a little bit later, you all know where Watson's facility is. That's 2 miles up the road. This is another 2 miles up the road, but this is designed to strategically assist in the implementation of the NC Ranch project. And Florida statutes look specifically at compatibility when we're talking about land use changes. And what it states is, can things exist or have a condition which land uses or conditions can coexist in relative proximity to each other in a stable fashion over time, such that no use or condition is unduly negatively impacted directly or indirectly by another use. So I did a little backward zoom when we left the Planning and Zoning Board and said, okay, if we look at the city of Newberry in the oblique aerial, you have many uses that are kind of hopscotching, so to speak. You've got some commercial uses and then residential uses. You have some light industrial, then you have some more residential uses. And they have coexisted over time. If you recall, I would say a year ago, I was standing here for Mr. Wiesman, and we had Mr. Fleming here, who has a very large-scale commercial nursery, and those uses can exist. It's all how you approve site plans. And the things that you put in, whether it's berming, buffering, landscaping, or a combination thereof, or how much distance you use to separate those uses, that helps them exist harmoniously together. And that will be a future decision when any applicant comes forward or individual to try to place a use inside that yellow rectangle up there. You will have that opportunity at that time to judge compatibility and make the appropriate decisions on that site plan application. So sometimes we hear too that the decision, well, it seems like it's just kind of in its own place, or it's a spot or a spot zoning. Well, in answer to that, and to help provide you with justification for the decision that you're asked to make tonight, Florida statutes, as well as the American Planning Association dictionary, as well as case law, has stated what spot zoning is. And this is not a spot zoning issue. This is a strategic placement on your future land use map of both land use and then also zoning to help facilitate development that is currently occurring or in the process of occurring, as for NC Ranch. And in the case law, specifically one that went to the Supreme Court in 1956, they said you have to look at 4 criteria. The size of the parcel that's being requested in a zoning, the compatibility with the surrounding area, the benefit to the owner, and then lastly, the detriment to the immediate neighborhood. So in each of these criteria that the Florida Supreme Court used, we brought some justification language forward here. In other words, here, the size of the spot. Usually when you talk about spot zoning or somebody wants to look at that, you're looking at a parcel, a single lot in a neighborhood where somebody wants to open a vape shop, or they want to open a snack shop or something like that, which is completely incongruous with the overall context of what it's sitting in. This is a 50-acre site. This is not a single small parcel. This is a site to create a modest-size, community-serving light industrial and construction-related building trades business park here is effectively what this is. This is not just change a parcel for a single use. As far as compatibility goes, we are looking here at specific land use and zoning amendments, and there's a tremendous precedent here that this site is strategically located on rail, so aggregate and building materials can come in by rail car as opposed to the state highway. It reduces trips out there. It creates a safer condition by removing trucks from the highway and places the onus on rail. And this can also help in not, really changing the character per se of what State Road 45 is out there to do. It's for, citizens and school buses and things like that, as opposed to construction vehicles kind of predominating that. And then lastly, in the compatibility realm, This request is not arbitrary in nature. We're not trying just to do something for no reason. We have a very strategic purpose there that is coinciding with multiple other projects in the city of Newberry by bringing additional jobs and construction-related activity central to a major project here. Number 3, this is not singularly a benefit to the owner. In a spot zoning, if somebody said, I want to turn my house into a snack shack or a vape shop, they're looking for a gain for just themselves. We are talking here of 50 acres of land, and this can serve multiple current and future trade professionals throughout the community by providing them with an area to locate their business. Currently, some of those businesses exist in Ocala and Marion County. You know, when I bought plumbing fixtures for my house, I drove to Ferguson in Ocala because there wasn't a place in Gainesville that had a wide variety. This allows something like that to happen right here in the community, and we've heard that over and over again during the presentation of the large-scale land use amendments. And then finally, this is not a detriment to the immediate neighborhood. The business park, because no applicants are before you tonight, does not have a detriment on the existing multiple examples within the city where currently industrial land uses, both light and heavy, have coexisted for decades against residential neighborhoods. You will have a bite at the apple probably 5 or 6 times to predicate what happens and how businesses would actually move forward in this property. And each time you can judge them on the merit of their own business. So with that, I would like to conclude. I am always here to answer any questions you may have. And if staff has additional questions, we'll be happy to answer those.
All right, let's start with the commission. So everybody understand, because I know it's kind of strange to have a zoning package that has no by right usage, right? So we have a zoning package, no by right uses, but opens up the opportunity for a lot of special use permits, but each of those would have to come back, right? And at that point, you can put the conditions, because at the P&Z, staff's recommendation was predicated on the conditions made it compatible, right? Now you can get the conditions back. Questions? Commissioner Coleman.
Well, I like it because 30 years from now, the younger Norfleets, they might be using drones to set the trusses, and there might be a drone plant there. I mean, they're coming back to ask for it. Is that a good analogy right there? I mean, there's a lot of changes can be made. So I like it.
Commissioner Clark.
I know I talked to Brian, I know this is an LDR thing, but I actually spoke to them. I like it. I dislike this situation we put the Norfleets in, or anybody really. It's become to the west of us, there's one of these. I don't like the special exception. I think for me, you put an LDR in place, it's an industrial park. You build what you want to build. That's what we got out here now. I don't see everybody coming for something special if they want to build a building. They do come before the BOA or something to give us, but I mean, industrial park, you got to come back for every little thing you want to do. And a 25-foot berm, I heard one time, that's too much. I don't know who come up with that. Your dang footprint be 150 foot wide. So whoever come up with a 25-foot berm coming up, I know this is zoning, but I mean, something can be done, but 25 foot's ridiculous.
I think that was staff and the applicant, but
well, that's a lot. That's a lot. I looked at it. 25 foot is huge.
Yeah.
Do the math on the footprint.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, to that point, I think we did mention last time, if you go 25 feet in the air, you're going to have to go at least at a 3-to-1 slope or a 4-to-1 slope. So for every 25 feet you go up in the air, you're 75 feet to 100 feet in either direction to make that berm stable, or you're going to have really one of those real ugly ones that exists like on 24th Avenue and 91st Street, where they took all the overburden in Hale Plantation and built it up around the tennis court and put trees on it, and it looks like a wall of dirt and clay with trees growing on it, and it's odd looking because it's got a side slope of about 2-to-1, like that. It takes up a lot of land too.
All right, other Commissioner Farnsworth and then Commissioner Maison.
How far does that railroad run down the property?
That railroad actually runs all the way up through, although there are portions of it that are inactive, I believe, north of that, all the way up to High Springs. Our plan in that is to place a linear park along that blue spine that would interconnect all the neighborhoods. So after construction is completed, if the entire rail line isn't abandoned at that point, we'll at least have our own linear park. But if they pull the track out, we'll have a linear park and a former rail trail connection that could effectively connect all the way up into High Springs if somebody wanted to activate that.
So if you use the linear park, would you'd have to build a roadway over the railroad track to get to the west side of the property?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. At some points, there will need to be crossing areas there to get materials out to those other phases that are on west side of the tracks. Yes, sir.
And what about the properties in the vicinity, like across the state road and also to the south of the property? How are they affected?
Well, if materials were going to be taken off-site, if, say, another developer or builder, let's say, by example, Mr. Wiesman for Tanglewood on State Road 26, if he wanted to buy his trusses or his materials, they would be trucked, and I would imagine that they would go in a variety of size vehicles, and they would take State Road 45 and maybe, State Road 26, obviously, to get there. So it depends on how much external sales occur from this business park. They would take regular traditional trucking type routes or vans or delivery vehicles.
Have we heard any feedback from residents of Avalon or to the property south of this one, where they're planning on building, I guess, the tiny homes or whatever?
RV park.
RV park.
Did you want to answer that? Because you were at the P&Z, as was I.
I was at the P&Z. They showed up and they did not object with the conditions. And so the curveball we got were the conditions couldn't be attached to the straight zoning. So it wasn't David McDaniel, it was his brother, I'm forgetting his name, Peter. So he said, if with those conditions, they didn't have an objection, but then he left, and then we found out we couldn't have those conditions. So if we're back to being able to condition it, then I would assume his previous testimony stands.
And also, you suggested like having showrooms and stuff on the east side of the property. And why not do like the first 25 acres there in commercial and the back part as industrial?
That's kind of how I think it would play out. I'll back up just slightly to illustrate.
How it would play out now, we approve the zoning, are two different things. If we approve it for industrial, then industrial can go all the way up to State Road 45.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. So, and Brian may have to help me here. There are probably non-material oriented uses that would natively be allowed without a special use permit on there. If you had, if you weren't manufacturing and you just had retail sales or sales in a showroom.
Hang on a second.
That could be a commercial type use.
But the answer has been repeatedly given that there's nothing that can happen on this without a special use permit. So we just got to make sure we're giving the same testimony back and forth.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. That's one of the details that we did not articulate well, is the reason that we know that the commission can condition this is because under material-oriented industrial, everything does have to come back before the commission for that special
even retail.
Use. Yes, sir. And it's a function of the land use as well as the zoning.
And I asked this question at the P&Z, and I hesitate to ask it now because we're getting pretty late in the process, but we're still like material-oriented zoning instead of just calling this an industrial park and doing it as a PD and what can go in there and what can't.
Again, Mr. Mayor, under industrial, there actually are no specified uses by right. There's a long list of prohibited uses, which tend to be the high industrial, the high-intensity industrial. Okay. Those would require yet a different type of permitting. But under material-oriented industrial and industrial zoning category, it basically, industrial will allow for any legal use that the commission wants to approve, the material-oriented industrial land use blanket or umbrella, so to speak, over the property is where the requirement is that you have to come back with a special use permit. And to Commissioner Clark's point, if this was just a blanket industrial and industrial zoning, land use and industrial zoning, then you might be able to do, like you're saying, and not have to come back for special use permits. The reason for the special use permit, though, is to guarantee the compatibility with the surrounding area. And so it eliminates the opportunity to put something there that would be potentially incompatible and not require special approval by the commission.
Yeah, I think, I agree with Commissioner Clark that the special exception, we're just setting up, however many more meetings here. But I also think that there's no, the brilliance of the ranch is the master planning, right? Being able to figure out all of that. And I think what Commissioner Farnsworth is getting at is it's going to kind of depend on which applicant comes first. And so I don't really know how you get to berms here or trees there or what you get to, because unless there's a master plan of who's getting built where, how do you know what conditions are? So this one, seems kind of like a piecemeal, unless we are going to get to a master plan eventually. The applicant may already have X number lined up and we kind of know where everybody's going to go, but we just can't get to that part here, right? Commissioner Maison, were you done, Commissioner Farnsworth?
Yeah, for now.
Right, Commissioner Maison.
He actually asked the question that I was going to ask. Why not commercial? Why not industrial in the back? But the other question that I have is, I love the layout. I'm just torn on the location of it. The location of it is really getting me. You got residents all around. You got a sports complex up the road, and it just, and if it's a location for me.
Well, kind of go back to Jordan, Mr. Mayor, location on, originally when we did it a year and a half ago, we were just going to have a special use. We were going to add it to the ranch because, like I said, we wanted the concrete plant and the truss plant to facilitate it. And part of that would be like my plumber stays trailers there, the materials, air conditioning guys stowed it. And so we thought we were going to go with special use on the whole thing. And then I thought the staff kind of decided we thought it needs to be industrial. So that's where we came back to this right here, that they needed to be an industrial with some of the things. Like you said, our ideal is to keep the heavier stuff to the back and then the lighter stuff up front. The reason we were never really planning originally to do industrial, we were going to do special use, but all this special use and zoning by me. One of the reasons we keep on the south end is, I've heard before that we said we don't have a rail spur. We're not going to have a spur. We're actually going to use the main line. And the line now ends at 46th Avenue. There's
But
nothing.
it's kind of like a spur because it's sort of a dead line.
That's correct.
Right.
And we've already got a crossing halfway across, halfway up on the property. There is a railroad crossing. So our ideal was to be able to put the pit about where he's got the little hole in the green buffer there. And that way the train could go by it. Say if you had 15 or 20 cars, it could go past that, and then when it was empty, it could go back, and it wouldn't cross the crossing that's in the center of our property. And that was kind of the ideal on that thing. And so, like you said, we would come back, on your special use, but that's how we ended up at the industrial. Our ideal was, our big thing was we're going to build 4,000 homes here. We want to be good neighbor to the people to the south that's got the trailer park. We want to be good neighbors to we're going to build homes from $200,000 to $2 million. So the last thing we want to do is put something in there that's going to look ugly or anything else. And we sure want to be a good neighbor for everybody and good steward of the deal. So that's kind of where we come to the industrial part. So I don't know if that helps or makes it worse or not, but I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I think we would certainly want the RV park and the $2 million homes to be good neighbors with each other. Commissioner Maison, he's still got the floor.
Yeah. Jerry, you mentioned you can set stipulations on the time when businesses are being ran, right?
Correct.
Could you do that with the train?
Oh, I don't believe you could do that.
So then the train could run at any time?
I would think that you'd get into the issues of interstate commerce, and if they were going to deliver, early in the morning or through the night. But again, it's going going to be somewhat limited. I think really heavy things would come in. You may have air conditioners come in by the box car, or you may have aggregate or timber come in by a flat car. But I don't think it's going to be nonstop. I think somebody had quoted, and I can't remember the number off my head, top of my head, but like every rail car equates to about 10 semis. And so it really reduces the number and the frequency by which, so if you had trips, up here once a month, that might suffice. It all depends on how fast you're consuming the materials and producing the structural elements to go in the community. So 2 things I wanted to say, because building on what Tripp said, if I were to design that, it's 50 acres, it's not that big. I would have a primary entrance on there and a loop road and about 2.5 acre lots spurred out in an oval around that site, so that if somebody came in and said, well, we're going to have carpet and things like that, 2.5 acres is more than enough for a carpet and flooring store. And I would envision like a lollipop in there on that east side. You probably get 10, 12 vendors in there. 10, 12 vendors times 2 acres, that's 25 acres of land consumed. And then on the back side, we drew that at about 20 acres or so. That's more than adequate for a batching facility. The smallest one we've ever done has been just at 10 acres. So while 50 acres is a large piece of land and it can accommodate a lot of businesses, it can get filled up pretty quick with the things that go into a home, between air conditioning, flooring, wood, cabinetry, plumbing and fixtures and so forth. You can go through both hands and pretty much get all the elements that go into a house.
Can I jump in on that 1 second? Because
Absolutely.
you just said something that's what I've been thinking of between the P&Z and now, is that the problem that we have with our 2 industrial parks at this point is they're built out. So I don't know that 50 acres is enough, because I think there's all kind of uses here. So I guess my question to the applicant would be, would you consider doing it a little bit larger so there's some room to grow here? And so the question was it here or was it at the P&Z that we talked about the north? Because that answers your concern. But I don't know that the rail spur gets you to the north. Was it the rail spur or was it the water and the sewer? What was the issue about just flipping it and putting that up to the north of it?
Well, like you said, if the rail's coming in and say on the map, you see where the opening in the green is on the railroad side, on the west side? So if you had just a pit that dumps the rocks, and then the rail, you would go across it, you got to pull the trucks up. You had it to the north, there's nowhere for the trains to go because the track's up. Right. You know what I mean? So there's no way, so you don't have to build a spur there. That is your spur, you know what I mean? And that's when we met with the railroad guys, that was one of our big deal. Another thing, just north of the industrial, that's where we're going to have the town center. We'll have another town center just north of my dad's house. And then it'll be similar to what we got here in Countryway Town Square, which is 10 acres, but this one's going to be about 40 or 50 acres. And then north of the green line, the green square, there'll be apartments. And then we're going to have some storage and RV storage and mini storage to kind of help buffer that off. And I don't think it'd be any different. Avalon Park right now is sitting right next to a batch plant, concrete batch plant, and also an asphalt plant and some different things. So the whole idea of having it on the south is to buffer off of it. We didn't think it'd work to the north. And then we'd have the commercial between that and the residential is what our idea was. That was our thinking with it on the south side.
And you think 50 acres?
Yeah, I think it's going to be plenty. One of the things we don't want to do, like I said, we're talking certain things. I mean, we're building houses too, so we want to make sure it's not terrible, but I think it's going to be more, not a big company coming in here and buying a big piece. It's going to be more of our stuff being there, and it's kind of a prep station for us to build the houses. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's stuff that's just relating to the houses, and I don't want to see, we wouldn't want a Cisco there with a bunch of trucks coming in, you know what I mean? And back to the train, if you had 25 cars to come in and dump, and say one car carries four semis does, that's one train coming in there. It'd be like 100 semis you'd knock out. And not all the stuff's going to come through the train. That's our goal. We hadn't got that piece done yet because we got to make sure we get the zoning on it. But the whole idea is just to bring in the material, stage it for the the building subdivision, and I don't know if any of y'all's been to Town Square. You go back here in the back, there's some trailers, my framers has got trailers, my plumbers has got trailers, we're staging pipe. I mean, it's amazing how much crap, because those guys don't want to have to take them home every day, so we need a fenced-off area that they won't get done. So, and then like our concrete batch plant, it's on a semi-trailer. It's really not that big, but I think the biggest thing is going to be more stuff getting stored there. And we definitely want it hid. I mean,
Commissioner Maison, you still got the floor. Are you done? Commissioner, who are you pointing? Commissioner Farnsworth, go ahead.
Trip, what's going to happen to Ed and Phyllis?
We're going to make it nicer on the house, man.
All right, I don't want no elder abuse going on there.
It's going to look good, man. They're going to be fabulous.
Commissioner Barton, were you reaching for the mic or no? I got confused.
In the interest of time, I don't think I have anything valuable.
Did you have anything else, Commissioner Maison?
Not at the moment, no.
No? Okay, so we're still in the legislative piece, but everything you've given is going to go over into the quasi-judicial. Any other parts of this that you want to present to the commission?
No, sir, this was the end of it, and as you stated, everything that we've stated here today, we would want in the record in both the legislative as well as the quasi-judicial. We presented it as a unified item because we know that the lines get sometimes blurry, and we ask questions, so we wanted all the information out there to be incorporated into the record, as well as that expert witness and testimony from staff on this. Oops.
Well, we appreciate that, because once we get in quasi, it gets very formal about what we can ask and what you can say and all those kinds of things. So we've had a nice conversation. Now I'll have a motion so that we can open it up to, hang on one second. Hang on now, this is where we got the P&Z and somebody threw a curveball. You're not going to throw the curveball.
Just to let you know, if the commission is interested, staff had a brief follow-up on the land use, but if not, then by all means, please.
Well, now you've done teased everybody's appetite. No, we're all good with future land? Okay, we're good. Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any last comments, questions, motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor. Come on down.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor. I'm Joy Glanzer, and I'm here to speak against the application to change 50 acres of ag into 50 acres of industrial land. After this wonderful presentation, a lot of my fears have been allayed, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you what my fears were, but I appreciate the presentation. It feels a lot better, and I think the public is a little more at ease with this. But some things I wanted to mention were the jump frog, I call it jump zoning and leapfrogging, like this hasn't been approved so much in the past. The applicant wants you to approve jumping over 3 zoning categories. We were going from ag straight up to commercial or straight up to industrial, and that worried me a bit because normally you have some buffering with residential and then commercial before you get to industrial. Also, there's no readily available water and sewer. I don't think we really saw that tonight. But in language pulled directly from your comp plan, all industrial uses shall be located on centralized potable water and sanitary sewer facility. And such centralized system shall completely serve the potable water and wastewater requirements for that industrial use. So I was going to ask, can you require that to happen before you approve the industrial zoning, not after? But you might want to speak to that. I felt like the industrial zoning was not compatible with the surrounding area. To the south is the recreation, to the east is residential, and to the north is ag. Of course, that will be residential later. So plopping 50 acres of industrial right in that area concerned me. If I was living in Newberry Hills, I'd be upset that there was an industrial park going across the street, but this has helped a lot. Zoning is forever. You can't take it back, so I hope tonight when you make this vote, you'll consider that. My last thought was, could we consider a special exception to the existing zoning, which could sunset in the future when the applicant's neighborhood was finished? Because granting the industrial zoning does open you up to anything that's allowed in that use. I had never heard of this type of package before, so
nobody had.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So that was the main thing that helped me to feel better about that. But anyway, thank you for your time.
I appreciate that, Ms. Joy, and I appreciate you saying that you listened to the presentation and it waylaid a lot of the concerns, because a lot of times I feel like people aren't really listening to the presentation, and the presentation does help waylay a lot of those concerns. So any other public comment? Come on down, sir.
Evening, everybody. Dale Bays from Newberry. It just means jobs, and it means a variety of jobs. It doesn't just mean a laborer, but it does mean somewhere somebody can come out of school, get in the cabinet shop. Doesn't mean 10 years from there, you can't be running the cabinet shop. There is opportunity. There's opportunity, and I'm sure going to be electronics and robotics and some computer backgrounds. That's not going to come out of high school. There's going to be degree jobs that come from this. I hear a lot of people talk about, a bunch of more stupid jobs. Well, it's not like it's a factory job. They're all turning a bolt. There's a lot of opportunity to learn different skills, different trades, and find one you like. and probably a good variety that's going to help that neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods. And that's kind of what Newberry wants to stay a small town. Then we all need to stay connected. We need to, we want to buy local and we want to hire local. But if you want to hire local, you got to have jobs for them. and you don't want to just come up with some good jobs and not have people interested in them. And don't fault the Northfleets for wanting to do this. Anybody in that position may want to do that. Use it as an opportunity to say, look what happens when your family comes in, and 5, 6, 7 generations later, look where you can be. They didn't come in the first year, next year home Newberry. That's not how it works. It's years and perseverance and over. And that's what I think's made Newberry strong, is there's a lot of that here. And I don't think we have to lose it. We just have to grow it like we do everything else. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Other public comment? Anybody else? Seeing none, we're going to come back to, so we've got a zoning package, motion on the floor. Zoning package has no by right. Everything comes back for special exception. That's the point where you can talk about how do you want to condition it, when you want to condition it, all of those kinds of things. And Brian, special exceptions, they don't have sometimes they do. Well, tell me about the sunset on special exceptions. Once you give the special exception, that goes with the zoning for the life of the zoning, or how does that work?
No, Mr. Mayor, it depends on how you condition it. So you could put a sunset into it. You could not put a sunset into it. You could specifically state that it would run with the land. It's up to the commission to determine that when it's special use permits presented.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion, probably seconded, public comment. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Hang up. Question.
Hey, buddy, it is what it is, bro. So with the sunsetting ordeal, do you put that into the motion?
You have to wait for that to happen when they come back to apply for the special exception. So when they come back to apply for the special exception, that's when you decide berms, no berms, landscaping.
Right now, it's zoning for industrial.
Right. Material, industrial. Okay. Roll call, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Farnsworth. Commissioner Martin. Commissioner Mazon.
Nay.
Okay, motion passed 4-1. Commissioner Mazon in dissent. That's going to move us to item 11, which is a quasi-judicial. No one new has entered the room. Mr. Attorney, would you please read the ordinance on first reading into the record for us?
An ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of approximately 50 contiguous acres, more or less, pursuant to an application by the property owner of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from Agricultural A zoning district to the Industrial I zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, located on the south tax parcels of 01875-000-000 and 01875-001-000, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-08 upon its reading by title only.
All right, thank you, sir. We've sworn in, we've done ex parte. Brian, do you want to rest on the presentation you made? You got anything to add?
Just real quickly, Mr. Mayor, this is the companion ordinance, the rezone the property to industrial. Won't go through the same things we've already talked about. Just the reiteration that it does require a special use permit. Just because the land use and zoning have been changed to industrial, it still requires a special use permit where the commission will establish the conditions under which the industrial area can operate. And just a comment, staff concurs with the analysis of spot zoning. We don't believe that this would qualify as spot zoning as well. That usually is something that occurs on much smaller parcels, not something that has multiple use base and that also has potential to benefit the community, like this application seems to.
All right, thank you, sir. Does the applicant rest on the presentation in the last item?
I should know by our night owl skills that we never rest. But no, we want to incorporate and move into the record all of the application materials, the staff report, staff presentation, our presentation, all competent substantial evidence that was placed during the previous discussion and at the plan board and our planning and zoning board. So all items are incorporated into the record, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Again, I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status on any quasi-judicial tonight, so it's going to move us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, that's going to take us, did you want to cross-examine staff, Jerry? No? Staff, you want to cross-examine? No? Members of the decision-making body, do you have any more questions? Okay, Mr. Attorney, would you please advise the decision-making body as applicable on factual findings?
It is substantial competent evidence, which is usually defined as those people that have a lot of letters after their name, like Mr. Diedenbach would be one, or Brian would be another, John Paul. That's their opinion testimony is what provides you that substantial and competent evidence because of their expertise in the planning arena. It was stated just a little while ago, where do we use material-oriented industrial lands and zoning? We had a small project, I think it was probably 25 years ago, called Florida Rock, that was utilized that project. I would say, based upon the testimony that you've had this evening, that a special use permit gives you the maximum amount of discretion when approving the development on a case-by-case basis as it comes forward. So you're going to have a lot of ability to look at buffering or other uses that are going in there, because you'll have the ability to make that decision based upon the testimony that you have at that time, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no more deliberations, I'll have a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, roll call vote. Commissioner Coleman? Aye. Commissioner Clark? Aye. Commissioner Farnsworth? Aye. Commissioner Martin? Aye as well. Commissioner Maison?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Commissioner Maison in dissent. That's going to move us to item 12. Remember, if you printed this off at home, it probably says this is quasi-judicial. This is another legislative. First reading of ordinance 2024-10/CPA 24-03. Would you please read that into the record, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan of 50 or fewer acres of land under the small-scale development amendment procedures established under the provisions of Section 163.3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in future land use classification from agricultural less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to commercial on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, tax parcel number 01924-002-000, consisting of approximately 3.7 acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-10 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir. Jean Paul, take it away. And before you take it away, Mike, let's consider, because I just saw that young man back there, he almost took his head off when he stood up of that TV. So maybe we might just want to take those last 2 chairs away, just as a thought, because I'm going to forget by the time we finish with all of these. But I said, oh my goodness, I was about to see it come crashing down. Go ahead, Jean Paul. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
My
Mayor.
heart jumped a little bit.
The request before you tonight is a future land use map amendment for all Florida Fencing and Supply. They're going to be changing locations, or that's the proposal, so they're going to be moving a little bit east from their current location. The total area of the new property is 3.7 acres, and they're requesting for future land use of commercial. Items 12 and 13 on tonight's agenda. This is number 12. The next one's 13. Our land use and zoning. There's a companion rezoning application you'll hear after this that proposes the zoning category commercial intensive. The applicant is Intellectual Partners. The map on the screen before you shows the general location of the property on State Road 26. Just east of the Tropical Traditions Nursery. And here, RV boat and storage. And here you can see the current land use as being agriculture, the proposed land use being commercial. And for concurrency, capacity exists on this particular state road segment. Concurrency will be handled through collection of impact fees at time of building permit. Wastewater connections are available, and they will be connecting at time of development. And because it's non-residential, there are no impacts to schools or parks. So just looking at the change of land use from commercial or from agriculture to commercial, commercial allows for a far more intense floor area ratio, up to 1, meaning for every 1 square foot of land, they can do 1 square foot of building potentially if they could make the development fit on the site. And there's no residential permitted in this particular zoning district, where currently there's a residential permitted, and that's 1 dwelling unit for every 5 acres. Staff does find the request consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations, and we are recommending approval of the ordinance on first reading. If approved tonight, we are wanting to bring this back before the board on March 11th. That'll be your first meeting in the month of March.
All right, thank you. Questions from the dais? Commissioner Clark.
JP, so the fence company's moving from the commercial
Correct.
to the small area?
Correct.
And that's east of them?
East of their current location.
East of their current location. Okay. Wow.
Mr. Fuller's here.
This is the
No, it's fine. I just wondered, it's just right down the road.
It is.
From there. West.
Okay.
East.
Oh, here.
Yeah. Other questions?
Nope.
If there are no more questions, I'll have a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Maison. Comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Congratulations, sir. We can't wait to see the new commercial construction. All right. Next one's quasi judicial. I've already read these into the record. So nobody new in the room. Thank you, Mr. Janine. Mr. Attorney, would you please read on first reading ordinance 2024-11/LDR 24-07, please?
This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of 3.7 acres, more or less pursuant to an application amending the official zoning atlas of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations, providing for rezoning from agricultural A to commercial intensive CI, certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel number is 01924-002-000, as described in Exhibit A, and providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2024-11 as read by title only.
Thank you, sir. Now, Paul, go ahead and give the staff overview. If the applicant doesn't have a presentation, slide right into your presentation and recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the record, John Paul Perez with the Planning and Economic Development Department. Staff has a presentation prepared. The applicant's here, does not have a presentation for the board, but is available for any questions you may have. This request is for 21831 West Newberry Road. The request is to rezone it from agricultural A to commercial intensive. The property consists of approximately 3.7 acres. The applicant on this, or the petitioner on this application, is also Intellectual Partners. This is the rezoning component of the land use that you just heard. The map before you shows the general location of the property within the city limits. Again, the request is to rezone from agricultural A to commercial intensive. Comparing the uses, is that something that the board is looking to hear tonight, or should we move to staff's recommendation
Move
on
to
the
staff's
item?
recommendation.
Let's do that. So staff does find it consistent with the comprehensive plan and land development regulations, and we are recommending approval. If approved on first reading tonight, plan on bringing it back before the board on March 11th. I'm available for any questions, and so is the applicant.
Okay,
Please, my
thank you.
presentation.
That's going to move us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item have 3 minutes to do so. Seeing none, would you like to cross-examine, sir? Did you hear anything you disagree with? No. The applicant, no? All right, wonderful. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions of staff? No? All right. Mr. Turner, would you please advise the decision-making body?
Substantial competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. Any public comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations again, sir. Go start building. We want to see that commercial construction tonight. All right. That'll move us to agenda item. This is professional design service contract for the Easton Gymnasium expansion project. Somebody wake up, Travis. There we go.
Where is Travis? Good evening.
Get up here, Maggot.
I was preparing some planning items. I was turning into a planner back there. I actually forgot what I was here for. All right, so professional design services contract for the Easton Gym. You guys might remember, I'll tell you the recommended action first. Authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Monarch Design Group for the design of the Easton Gymnasium addition. You guys might recall that I had brought this to your attention in November, where we piggybacked the City of Gainesville's solicitation for design services. Now I'm asking you to actually approve a contract with Monarch to begin the design process. This project is funded in the 2024 budget with construction planning, we plan to start in 2025 if everything goes right. The expansion is financed by the Alachua County Infrastructure Surtax. Some contract details, some of the items that we're going to be handling, the civil, the MEP, geotech, all the engineering associated, contract price of $299. Our estimated project cost for the entire gymnasium expansion is $5.2. Full transparency, we're getting some numbers in right now as estimates for cost of construction. They are high, as you might expect. Depending on what source of construction we go. There's tilt wall construction like what we currently have, how our building was constructed. There's CMU block. We can go red iron, fancy it up a little bit. There's options, and we're going to get creative to make sure we can get the most bang for our buck and the most space that we can get. And again, recommended action is just to authorize the contract so we can start designing.
Okay. All right, questions for Travis?
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Mazon. Second from Commissioner Martin. All right, we're going to get this one started building tonight, too. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor tonight? Public comments, questions, motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Good job, Travis. You waited all night just for that. I don't see Dallas here, so I'm assuming that's going to be Mike. He's going to take us through the Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility and Expansion Project Legislative Appropriation Grant. Get that last word in there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a brief item. if the commission will remember, last budget year for the legislature, which was almost a year ago for us now, we're in the middle of the 2024 legislative budget season, or winding it down, but in the 23 budget season, we were awarded an appropriation from the legislature and the governor to, in the amount of $1 million to contribute towards construction of our wastewater treatment plant expansion. And I know you guys are enthusiastic about the wheels of government and how fast all that moves. And the speedy wheels of state government got the agreement formed to us that we would receive their $1 million and spend it toward a wastewater plant. And however, the city manager needs authorization to execute the funding agreement. So that's what we're presenting to you tonight is a funding agreement that says the state gives us $1 million and we use it towards building a wastewater treatment plant. We'll have another one of these before you at the next meeting related to the elevated storage tank that we also received an appropriation for. The state's just a little bit slower getting that agreement to us than with this one. So the recommended action, Mr. Mayor, are to discuss the item if you wish, and to authorize the city manager to execute the grant agreement for the $1 million appropriation awarded to the city in the 2023 legislative session to fund the city's wastewater treatment facility.
Any questions? If no questions, I'll have a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That's going to take us to Southwest 15th Avenue Road Reconstruction Project Land Transfer Agreement. Mr. New, still on deck.
And Mr. Mayor, that last presentation we're going to use as a training presentation for staff on brevity. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just getting late in the evening. Mr. Mayor, we have talked about the Southwest 15th Avenue Road reconstruction. It seems like every meeting. We're giving you updates, and the last time we gave you an update, we told you that the county school board agreed to donate 1.8 acres of land that we would use for stormwater retention, because we didn't have it. And they did. That was in early December. But their motion included a provision that we execute an agreement with them, an interlocal agreement for the land transfer. And we were unaware, and they didn't forward the document to us. And so we've been kind of sitting around on our hands for close to 90 days, and when we followed up to say, hey, we really want to get that deed because we're getting close to construction, they said, well, you never signed the agreement. And so we said, fine, send us the agreement. City Attorney's Office reviewed it, has no objections with it. The conditions of the agreement, let me get us on to the item. The conditions of the agreement on the city's part are to prepare and provide a survey and a title search of the property. The 1.8 acres, that's already done. That's been transmitted to them in December. And we're required to construct the stormwater retention facility within 5 years. If not, it reverts back to the county. And the county agrees to execute a quitclaim deed, transferring the property to us if we provide them with the above-mentioned survey title search. So that's kind of the background. That's here we are. So what we're asking is authorization for the mayor to execute the land transfer agreement with the school board of Alachua County. If we can get that authorization, we will have it filed in public record tomorrow, and we will check that box off as something that needs to happen for us to proceed with construction of Southwest 15th Avenue. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Questions? Motion?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions, motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor?
Is it signed?
It will be as soon as we have this vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Guys, on the fact that it's getting late tonight, I can tell you in conversation with you, item 17, It's going to be a lengthy conversation, and I don't think it's pressing. I recommend we table it till the next meeting. Mr. Manager, you have any objections?
Not a bit.
Okay. If there are no objections from the dais, that would take us to public comments.
I'm ready. I got Eliano's coffee. I'm good to go.
Yeah, see, I've been looking at that Eliano's coffee, wondering why I didn't get one. Do I have a motion to table?
Motion.
I got a motion to table, second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Comments, question, motion on the floor? Seeing none, public comments, seeing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That moves us to comments. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to give you a brief update, as the commission knows, that we had a sinkhole developed in one of our holding basins at the wastewater plant last week. I think we found it on a Monday morning, walked in, and that basin, which is normally full of water, was bone dry empty. That's your first sign that it's not going to be a good week. So a sinkhole developed underneath it. It is a lined basin. It's got a plastic liner in it. And when the sinkhole opened up, the liner stretched as far as it would stretch, then popped. All the water discharged down, through the sinkhole, and we were left with an empty basin. We mobilized a contractor out there. We mobilized Coleman Construction, who is not related to one elected official in Newberry, and just so the commission knows, is no longer owned by Coleman at all. Mr. Steve Coleman, not related to Commissioner Rick Coleman, sold the company about 3 years ago. So, but we hired them under our emergency procedures because people were wondering about the bidding of that. When you have an emergency, and you have to just mobilize a contractor to the site, you negotiate the price, and that's what we've done in that. This claim appears to be insured. So our insurance carrier has been on site. They've evaluated it. They know how we're going about the repair. Jamie has been overseeing the repairs masterfully. He could do this for a living. That he's repaired so many, he does do it for a living, as a matter of fact. So we cut out the liner, dug down to where we could find the actual chimneys, the holes going down through the aquifer or going down through the soil. We capped it with a combination of concrete rubble and grout. Put a cap on it, and then we go to backfill it. Today it is backfilled, and we are working on getting the liner put back in and seam back together. They heat fuse it back together, and I anticipate by the end of this week we'll be complete with that, have it all backfilled, and be ready to put the basin back into service. Best projections are the costs are going to be north of $100,000. But probably not get quite to $200,000 just based on what we've seen. It did damage some of our structures out there, and the repairs on those structures will be addressed as soon as we get the backfilling done, get all the earthwork done, then we'll turn our attention to the structures. And just to let you know that in the design of the new treatment plant, Jamie has taken extraordinary measures to ensure that all of our new facilities will be proofed before construction to try to minimize the proclivity for this, and we'll be moving away from this area on the treatment plant, which seems to be given to those types of activities, sinkhole development. So any questions about that, feel free to text me or email me or ask me in a public meeting. Mr. Mayor, wanted to advise the commission that I'll be traveling to Tallahassee tomorrow with Commissioner Clark and with Debbie Boyd, former Representative Debbie Boyd. We're going to be meeting with our elected representatives on 2 items to speak in support of the city's request for appropriation funding for the Veterans Memorial Park. As of today, I understand that it is fully funded in both the House and the Senate at the city's ask, which was $250,000. So we're enthusiastic about that. They're just about to go into what they call budget conference. And so our ask tomorrow is going to be preserve the funding level that it is currently at. And we're feeling we're in good position with that. We're also going to stop by DEP or hope to stop by DEP and speak with their staff about the grant application that we have in. It's a $50 million wastewater grant application. We were invited to transmit that application. Wasn't something that popped up in the normal channels. The Water Management District was aware of our project, and they contacted us and said the state's running this program and we'd like to submit it. So we'll learn more about that. I don't have any idea what the review time frame is, but that would be a significant feat for the city to secure $50 million in grant funding for that wastewater plant project that we have going. Mr. Mayor, we were notified, I believe today, but recently, that the city of Newberry is a recipient of FMEA Safety Award. We win that award with most years because we do have a very well-trained crew that puts safety as the priority. This year, we received top honors for no lost time events, and we shared that with maybe a dozen other utilities, but I'd say there were 24 that didn't share in that event. And hats off to our team for always ensuring that safety is their biggest priority when they show up. That's both the safety of our crews, but the safety of our public as well. Have a meeting this week with the city of Archer just to coordinate a regional wastewater plant project. They're designing and constructing collection facilities and force mains, and we're designing and hope to be soon to be constructing wastewater plants. And we think that all told, we're north of 60, maybe north of $70 million, and we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, singing out of the same hymn book, as they say.
Just go ahead and start making it 100 million, all right? Because we'll be there by the time we break dirt.
And Mr. Mayor, if we, in totality, consider what Archer's wastewater collection system costs are, is they're starting with, their downtown area with no pipes in the ground. So that's remove every road, put gravity sewer through all those existing neighborhoods. It well could be more than a $100 million project by the time you total it all together. We're also meeting with Santa Fe College, the president of Santa Fe College, towards the end of this week to discuss many opportunities, but one specifically is discussions of some variety of a satellite campus in Newberry, potentially on the Ag Tech Park site, but looking at vocational trades, looking at training to support the Ag Tech Park. So I think there's lots of opportunities, and they're pretty enthusiastic.
And a CDL, perhaps.
And a CDL. They're very enthusiastic about opportunities in Newberry. They were really enthused by the State of the City address and reached out to us within just a matter of a few days to say, could we meet with your community and have discussions? So I think that will be a great opportunity for our residents. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney?
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk?
I do have one. Sure can. I'd like to announce that our 2024 municipal election has been canceled due to our current incumbents with groups 1, 2, and 3 ran unopposed. So I look forward to working with you three for another 2 years. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
And our swearing-in ceremony is scheduled for April the 22nd.
All right, and that's what we're doing at nighttime still. We've segued away. Perfect. Okay. Congratulations, fellas. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioner Coleman?
I started the lacrosse program here at Newberry High School. And I went and watched the guys, I think it was the beginning of last week, but those guys are unbelievable. And Attorney Walker's son is our goalie for Newberry.
Hey, nice.
He's pretty daggum quick,
Pretty
too.
proud of him.
And I think they won I don't know the record. I think Reese told me today they're number 2 in the district. 4 wins, 1 loss.
4 wins. Who they lose to?
Huh?
Who they lose to?
Let's not put so negative.
No, that's not negative.
Santa Fe.
How can we?
Well, they get another shot at him.
There you go.
You know anybody went to Santa Fe High School?
Good guy.
Because I knew where this was coming.
Yeah, exactly. But, no, actually, I know that, I don't know that we had a 500 season the 3 years I was there. But my son's coaching over there, and he knows a whole lot more than I did back then, so.
They are looking good. Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Clark, you got anything?
Just to, as usual, think about those deployed, and God bless America, and that's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth?
Congratulations to both of you guys. Oh, I don't know.
Congratulations, I'm sorry.
Why you doing it for another 2 years, I don't understand, but hey, each his own. And then that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Barton. Commissioner Maison?
Of course, man, come on. If you did start the lacrosse program, that's a good thing, seriously. That's an accomplishment. Congratulations to all three of you guys for running unopposed. This might be a record, right?
No, it's been a while.
It's been a while. I mean, if we go unopposed, the time.
No one ran against the three of us last time either.
I don't know. After this commission meeting, we'll see. But I need security to walk me out here. But downtown, Miss Francis, let me grab it real quick. I had it here and I lost it. She had a great turnout. Jesus Christ, the age. Their first open house, they had about 50 people, and they had new volunteers. Their next event is going to be the Spring Festival. That's right. It's going to be April the
I'm waiting for you to tell me.
6th from 9 to
4.
There he is, 9 to 4. And so they're completely full, and they're expecting a great turnout. So this is what I want to do today is I want to do is, Monty, are you older than Girl Scout cookies? Since Girl Scout cookies are like hitting hook huge right now.
I don't remember them when I was young.
You don't remember, so you want to say you are older, or you want to say they are older than you?
He's older than
Well, we
them.
never bought stuff like that.
So what are you going to say?
I'm going to say I'm older than they are.
You're going to say you're older than Girl Scout cookies? All right. Well, Monty, let me pull it up real quick here. Girl Scout cookies, 1917, brother. Yeah. They got their start in the kitchen of Girl Scouts and their mothers. Girl Scouts began to sell cookies as a way to finance their scouting activities as early as 1917, just 5 years after Juliet Daisy Gordon Lowe started the first Girl Scout group in Savannah, Georgia. 1917. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Obviously, congratulations to everybody that ran. And I just want to take a second, and I should have said it when the parents were here, but I want to congratulate these parents that have put forth this idea, this plan. I know that it's causing a lot of anxiety, but I also know that it's causing an awful lot of excitement. And I got an update today from their leadership team that they have had hundreds of parents who have signed up to volunteer. Hundreds in 6 days, 7 days. Wow. So, and that within the first week, it's a, Commissioner or Representative Clemens says it's not a movement, it's a crusade. Wow. And I'm inclined to agree with him at this point, to have hundreds of parents read that plan, listen to the plan, and say, I want to sign up to help.
Sounds like a small group.
Yeah. I mean, it is. So I just, and when I know that there's been some equal criticism on you guys are rushing this, and what's the rush, and then how come you guys are talking about this before you can answer every single question, right? They're kind of getting it on both ends. But standing back and watching them, these guys are unfolding the most well thought out, well organized potential solution to partner with the community, with you guys, with the school board to do something amazing for our kids. And, you're at the announcement, we heard from 2 or 3 of them. At the town hall, we saw another 2 or 3. Tonight, we saw another. So the faces and the names are coming out, right? And I'm just so proud of our community for putting this putting a choice in front of us. So.
Are you certain
Oh, wow. And that's,
Are you certain there's more than hundreds?
and that's all I've got. Public comment.
Wow.
Mr. New.
Mr. Mayor, that reminded me of one thing I wanted to offer for consideration. I've heard a lot of folks suggest that our current board wouldn't be qualified to operate a school board. And I want you guys to think about that it is not the role of the board members to be experts in an operation. Not one of you come from local government and the services that we offer, fire services, recreation, planning, building, utilities. None of you do that, and the community believes that you do an excellent job in providing that type of leadership. And I know that we've had a lot of conversation for the last 6 months about Gainesville Regional Utilities, the utility side needing a board to oversee them. And the 4 candidates selected, none have a utility background. And that was the governor's staff picking. So I think what makes a good board member isn't necessarily someone that's an expert. I think good board members have vision and make good decisions based on the information that's provided to them. You get sometimes months to consider things, but typically you get an agenda package on a Thursday and you're making a decision on a Monday. So when the staff doesn't have lots of roles to speak as to what the community questions are about this, but I just wanted to offer that I think that it is a good idea that the community has posed you as a governing board for a period of time, but I don't think that 3 to 5 years should be something that people consider are lengthy. I think that getting this thing stood up will require some stability if it's going to move forward, and I think that a 3 to 5 year period is something that the city of Newberry and the people that are organizing this opportunity should consider as being reasonable, and I don't think that our school board will be one step behind any other school board in the state of Florida, because none of you, well, actually, we have one teacher in the group, but because all of you guys don't have experience in the education arena, I think that's the way America runs itself with local government, is the policymakers aren't experts in operation by design, and it seems to work pretty well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the extra time.
I agree with that completely, and also I wanted to say this during the public comment, but that 3 to 5 year transition period, I want the management team to be solely focused on making that a good transition if that's what you guys decide to do. And to elect another school board, I think we'd have to go back to the charter, and we have to write a whole new section of the charter to create more elected positions. Some of you were here when we did a charter review, that was a 9-month exhaustive process. I don't want to take, if these guys end up being the management team, I don't want to take their eye off the ball right at the beginning and say, okay, now while you create all this transition and new positions and you work out all these kinks, let's also go back to the charter. So, and that is going to be kind of a lengthy process. And that's not to say that there aren't some options in between there, but that 3 years, that's going to go by really quick. That's going to, in government world, 3 to 5 years is a blink of the eye, right? So that was my thought on that.
Hi, on behalf of the Newberry Area Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to remind everybody and invite everybody to the free movie on the lawn this Friday night, 6:30 p.m. Brave. Treats and activities related to the movie will be
I love it.
That's an awesome movie.
provided. If you've never done it before, it's a blast. Bring your own chair, grab your takeout dinner from a Newberry restaurant, and enjoy the movie and your neighbors.
Is it at the bank?
No, it's right here in the park.
I knew they were doing something like that.
Brave, that's a good one.
Any other public comment?
That's a good one.
Hearing none, we are adjourned.